Larry Nassar is innocent. Another witch hunt victim in a culture that just will not... Yeah, right! No, come on. Larry Nassar is a true monster. For over 2 decades, when he was still out in the wild, he mastered the art of being a wolf in sheep's clothing. A real pervy, slimy wolf who needed to have his paws cut off. Larry seemed to damn near everyone to be a super friendly, kind, patient, funny, top-tier doctor with deep, extensive knowledge of human anatomy. He appeared professional, trustworthy. He was loved by nearly all the parents, children, and other professionals he came across in the gymnastics industry for 3 decades. Most of his victims didn't even realize he was sexually abusing them. That's how crafty he was. They truly believed they were being treated by some sort of medical luminary. Nassar was an osteopathic physician who primarily treated young female gymnasts, a group of athletes in need of frequent medical care due to the continual injuries and wear and tear that comes with competing in gymnastics at the highest, most elite level. Through some skillful networking, Larry was selected to be the team physician for the USA women's gymnastics team, a prestigious position that earned him a lot of respect in the U.S. gymnastics community, really the global community. And Larry quickly became a renowned doctor. Parents felt lucky to have their daughters receive treatments from one of the best in the biz. Many gymnasts felt the same, or at least they wanted to feel that way. They thought they should feel that way. But as the years dragged on, Dr. Nassar's highly unusual and invasive treatments started to make more and more people feel extremely uncomfortable or outright abused and molested, because that's what was happening. For most of his long-heralded career, Larry Nassar was sexually abusing patient after patient under the guise of treating them. Disturbingly, he often abused them with their parents or supervisors, not only nearby, but in the same room. Nassar had seemingly mastered the dark art of hiding in plain sight. He took advantage of girls who were competing in a very high-control environment, athletes who had been taught their entire lives to be extremely obedient, to not question authority, to do what their coaches and coaching staff told them to do. That was how you became the best. You listened. You did what you were told, quickly and without question. He took advantage of ambitious teens who desperately wanted to fix their injuries so they could continue competing for the highest honors in the sport they loved so much and had dedicated most of their lives to. Reports about Nassar go all the way back to the 1990s. For many, many years, when victims made allegations of wrongdoing, they were told they just didn't understand his medical methods, or they were shamed into silence, or were told by adults in positions of power that the matter would be looked into, but then it would not be. Their complaints would be ignored, sometimes by other predators, in a sport that turned out to be rife with them. Nassar was finally taken down in 2016, following the Indianapolis Star releasing an article revealing allegations against him, which encouraged others, soon many, many others, to come forward with their stories as well. In total, over 500 people, all but one of them young women and underage girls, will report that they were abused by Larry Nassar. One male gymnast also molested by Dr. Nassar. In today's episode, we'll discuss how this particular sport has traditionally fostered an environment for abuse to easily take place, how Larry Nassar was able to get away with and hide what he was doing for so long, numerous victim stories, how Larry was one of many sexual predators working in children's gymnastics in America, the lengthy investigation into his case, and more, and a why are some meat sacks seemingly incapable of just keeping their hands to themselves? Tumbling, balance beam, back handspring, maybe not cartwheels, but definitely somersaults and ring leaps edition of Timesuck.
This is Michael McDonald, and you're listening to Timesuck.
You're listening to Timesuck.
Well, happy Monday, and welcome to the Cult of the Curious. I'm Dan Cummins, Master Sucker. Randy Woodfield, striptease choreographer. Reanimated Dick Bird's legal consultant. And you are listening to Timesuck. Hail Nimrod, hail Lucifina, praise be to good boy Bojangles, and glory be to Triple M. This is the first episode of Timesuck that I'm recording since the Dan Schneider episode dropped. And in today's Timesucker updates, I will further explain my position on that episode a bit. I know that episode was divisive. I knew it would be. And maybe that's not a bad thing. It's gotten a lot of you talking. We've had research for today's subject done for a little while, and it just felt like the right week to release this episode, since this story parallels the Schneider story in some ways, but also there are some very important differences, and I think it will help explain my position. And that's it until the updates. First things first, how am I going to lay out today's information? Well, I'm going to start with some poppy music, maybe Centuries by Fall Out Boy, maybe Good as Hell by Lizzo. Then I'm going to do a few little dance moves, just some smooth kind of pirouette type shit with an eye towards the judges before breaking out into a kind of like a little trot across the floor, followed by 2 cartwheels, then 2 back walkovers, then a back handspring before launching into a triple backflip with a 360 twist. Then I will for sure stick the landing. The crowd will cheer. Then I'll do a pretty cute little ponytail flip, wink at the judges. Flirty, but not in a gross way. Then I'm going to shake my little bottom from side to side a bit, playfully. Then I'm going to refocus myself, shoot a blue steel like Zoolander gaze towards the other end of the floor. Then I'll do a couple more cool ballet interpretive dance type moves. Then I'm going to trot back across the floor, pop into a front flip, followed by a cartwheel, followed by a back handspring before launching some triple twisting double back shit. I'll stick the landing. Then sashay, sashay, sashay. Oh, so much sashay. Followed by some skipping, followed by some moonwalking. Then I'm going to make a few Michael Jackson noises. And then I'm going to jump straight up into the air, turn upside down, do the Street Fighter 2 Chun-Li spin kick fucking shit back to the center of the floor where I will shoot fireballs out of a cannon I had hidden in my leotard. Then I'm going to fucking burn the judges alive. Then I'm going to shoot up into outer space, go live on another planet for a little while before I decide to come home and fucking tell you about it. And that probably went on a bit too long, but that was fun for me to do. Here's how I'm really going to set things up. I'm going to first discuss how the highly competitive environment of top-level gymnastics, these athletes are so talented, I can't even fucking do a cartwheel, has allowed abusers to hide in plain sight for decades. Then we'll cover the full timeline of Larry Nassar's medical career, the investigation into his sex crimes, how various organizations handled sexual abuse allegations against him over the years, leading to multiple arrests and settlements, and exposing over 50 other alleged sexual predators working with underage female gymnasts in the U.S. So let us begin. Larry Nassar worked with USA Gymnastics, USAG, for almost 3 decades before he's finally arrested for numerous sexual assaults and possession of a preposterous amount of child pornography. And for over 25 years, he sexually abused patients under the guise of medical treatments. At his historic Ingham County sentencing hearing in Michigan, 156 women and girls gave victim impact statements. And they were just a fraction of the true number of his victims, which now sits at over 500. A staggering number. As we'll discuss in the timeline, in 2016, the Indianapolis Star newspaper published an investigative journalism piece about how USA Gymnastics handled allegations of sexual abuse against coaches, followed by an article with allegations against Larry Nassar. Following the publication of these articles, several brave young women began to come forward to share their stories for these articles, and by doing so, gave even more victims the courage to come forward. These horrific stories of abuse shocked the nation. Millions of people love watching gymnastics, especially during the Olympics. They wondered how USA Gymnastics, coaches, other supervisors, and parents could allow this level of abuse to continue for so long. How could no one have seen what Larry Nassar was doing? How could they not have noticed what was happening in many instances literally right in front of them? The truth is, some people were noticing. Many people were making reports well before 2016. The earliest known report against Nassar goes all the way back to 1997. Victim after victim who came forward over the years were questioned about their stories and sometimes shamed into silence or warned not to speak out against Nassar, a man who had the complete and total trust and respect of many gymnastics professionals. But then in 2015, a young gymnast reported that Larry Nassar abused her at the Caroli Ranch, the Olympic training camp near Houston, Texas. And this allegation did not fizzle out like so many before it. This allegation led to an FBI investigation into Nassar's conduct with other Olympic gymnasts. And at the same time, a separate investigation was now finally taking place in Michigan after so many years of allegations there, involving hundreds of victims from Michigan State University and other gymnastics facilities in Nassar's home state. Finally, it looked like justice was coming, at least for Nassar. But he, as it turns out, is just one of so many adults involved with women and or children's gymnastics who have turned out to be, or are alleged to be, sexual predators. Why are so many of these dirty fuckers drawn to this sport? A lot of people have pointed towards the controlling environment of competitive gymnastics being the lure. Girls who grow up in this sport have been taught to obey, to never question authority. Those who do are often punished. It's also, like most sports, highly competitive at the elite level. There's a fear that if you speak out, well, then you won't be welcome at the top training centers anymore. You won't be able to train with the top trainers and coaches. And if that's the case, well, then you're never going to the Olympics. Jennifer Say, an author and former gymnast, did an interview for the incredibly well-done Netflix documentary about the Nassar scandal, Athlete A, which premiered June 24th, 2020. I finally just watched it for this episode. And when she was asked if there were coaches or officials who girls were suspicious of or spoke about as being abusive, she answered quickly, yes, absolutely. There were sexual predators everywhere. She explained that when she began gymnastics in the 1970s, the emotional and physical abuse of athletes wasn't the exception, it was the norm. And I found numerous other gymnasts from her era that have repeated this claim. And these predators thrived in this world of competitive gymnastics because, again, gymnasts were taught to be extremely obedient, right? Do as they were told, not question coaches, training techniques, anything. So even when they knew there was a sexual abuser among them, they never said anything and felt powerless to stop it. And this is huge. Unlike during the entire previous history of specifically women's gymnastics, the gymnasts were very young. Say talked about an interesting cultural shift that occurred in gymnastics during the 1970s. Gymnastics coaches being cruel to their athletes, that was nothing new. But those athletes in the past, typically full-grown adults. Then all of that changed when Bella and Marta Karolyi entered the Olympic scene. Bella and Marty are Romanian defectors who came to the U.S. in 1981 and pretty much immediately took over the women's Olympic gymnastics program here in the U.S. These coaches were famous all over the world because they'd coached Nadia Comaneci to an Olympic gold medal in 1976 when she was only 14. Nadia actually is a 5-time gold medalist. She was the first gymnast to earn a perfect 10 at the Olympics when she was 14. At the 1976 Olympics, she received 6 perfect 10s, won 3 gold medals. It's crazy. According to Say, Nadia's victory solidified a shift to younger and smaller female gymnasts that began in the late 60s and early 70s. And there are stats that back this claim up. Check out the ages of the Olympics all-around champions for female gymnastics that I found here. 1952, 30 years old. 1956, 21. 1960, 25. 1964, 22, 1968, 26, 1972, 20. So all between 20 and 30 years old from 1952 to 1972. Not a single teenager in that group. Ever since, literally nothing but teenagers. 1976, Nadia Comaneci, 14 years old. Right? 1980, 18 years old. 1984, 16 years old. 1988, 19. 1992, 15. Every all-around champion since between 15 and 19. Nadia was the turning point. Because when Nadia won, she didn't just win. She fucking dominated. She became the world's first true gymnastics superstar. She displayed a new level of, never-before-seen style and grace that brought her entire sport a massively increased level of exposure. She did for gymnastics essentially what Caitlin Clark has been doing for women's basketball lately. She brought a ton of new eyeballs, made a ton of new fans. Little girls all around the world now wanted to be just like Nadia, and they signed up for gymnastics. And all of this led to a new childlike aesthetic in the sport. And that was in so many ways really not good. Not only was Nadia young, she was also very skinny, waifish. She looked even younger than 14. Did not have a mature body in any way, shape, or form. She was 86 pounds at 4'11". And this body type now became idealized in gymnastics. Many people now believed you had to be as small as possible, as skinny as possible to best perform the most difficult gymnastic skills. And eating disorders now became prevalent, if not the norm, for elite gymnasts, as well as delayed menstruation and maturation. The NCAA once reported that female gymnasts show a much higher rate of disordered eating than other athletes, with levels of between 51 and 62%. In addition, the average age of menstruation among gymnasts is 15.5 years, compared to 12.4 years for the general population. And that delay caused by a nutritional deficiency, aka not eating enough, combined with training too hard too frequently. It's not healthy. It's very cool. It's amazing what these gymnasts can do. Their bodies look like they're in perfect shape. They're not necessarily healthy at all. Once the age of female gymnasts began to shift, a lot of coaches began to notice that these new, younger gymnasts were more coachable, right? They got less kickback from kids than they would from adults. Because kids are, of course, used to deferring to adults and not standing up for themselves. And many of these coaches found that they were able to be, frankly, crueler to kids who didn't feel as emboldened to stand up to them. Geza Pozar, the Karolyi's choreographer from 1974 all the way to 2002, told the producers of the Athlete A documentary that Romanians came up with the concept of training gymnasts from a very young age. Girls began to be selected in kindergarten, tested for flexibility, strength, a lack of fear, and then the most promising of these little kids would be raised in gymnastics. Pozar said that during the Cold War, while the Soviets could not build better products than the Americans, they could create better elite athletes due to the different level of power and control coaches were given in these authoritarian regimes. Pozar said Bella was the one who had the idea to establish total control over the girls. Pozar claimed that Bella made his young gymnasts step on a scale, this is so fucked up, literally every day. That he frequently yelled at them, called them things like fat cows and pigs, allegedly had no problem even slapping the girls when they displeased or disappointed him when they weighed more than he wanted them to. And I know weight is a factor, but really? Fat cows, pigs, little girls? These girls naturally became afraid of him. And obviously this outrageous, psychological abuse and physical abuse inflicted upon these girls completely fucked up their concepts of self-worth. Pozar alleged that Marta would also do terrible shit, like dig her fingers into the gymnast's necks, slap them hard. She allegedly slapped them so hard the girls sometimes ended up with her ring imprinted on their faces. Tracy Talavera, a 1984 Olympian who trained under the Carolis, spoke of how beaten down they were, how the Carolis did the same shit to American gymnasts after they defected. She said, in other sports, the athletes are adults. You can reasonably make choices about what they want, or they can. I don't think that is true in gymnastics. These kids go to these national training centers when they're 10 years old. They're abused and mistreated for years. So even by the time they're of age, the line between tough coaching and child abuse gets blurred. So then when real, obvious abuse, sexual abuse happens, you already don't believe your own take on things because you think you're hungry. You think your ankle hurts. You think that you're working really hard, but you're told and you're screamed at that you're lazy, that you're fat, that there's nothing wrong with your ankle. And these poor girls that the world watched on their TV, smiling and competing in these aesthetically beautiful and athletically mesmerizing routines, were just fucking abused and miserable. Pozar said that he reported the Carolis to the authorities in Romania, but nobody took any measures to stop them because that behavior was seen acceptable in Romania at that time. And then Pozar defected with Bella and Marta to the U.S., got involved with USA Gymnastics. USA Gymnastics, the national governing body of gymnastics here in the U.S., the organization founded in 1963, currently has almost 200,000 members. USA Gymnastics responsible for developing the Olympic team and promoting gymnastics at all levels. Bella and Marta Karolyi would both serve as head coaches of Olympic teams and as national team coordinators. Not sure why Pozar never reported them over here. I guess they toned down their ways a bit. Bella was named head coach for the women's Olympic gymnastics team in 1988 and again in 1992. Marta served as head coach in 1996. Bella started his role as national team coordinator in 1999, retired in 2001. Marta then took over his role until her retirement in 2016. That a long reign. This couple that had run the show in Romania with an iron fist for years now did the same shit in America. The Karolis bought a 40-acre ranch 60 miles north of Houston in 1983 called Karolyi Ranch. And the ranch, as it is commonly called, or was for many years, was then expanded into 2,000 acres by 1989. It could accommodate 1,400 gymnasts and accompanying staff and was designed as a national training center for women's gymnastics in 2001. In 2011, it was named an Olympic training site. And for many, many years, Nassar would sexually abuse dozens and dozens and dozens of America's top female underage gymnasts here, gymnasts who claimed that they were also being physically abused, oftentimes by the Karolis, just this kind of culture of abuse. The Karolis and their training center will be discussed throughout the timeline we're about to jump into, due to their connection with the Larry Nassar case. I'll also mention some other high-profile coaches who ended up being charged and or convicted of sexual crimes perpetrated against young gymnasts. Mostly, though, we'll focus on Dirty Bird Larry Nassar and the massive multi-jurisdictional investigation of his crimes and subsequent trials.
Strap on those boots, soldier. We're marching down a Timesuck timeline.
Lawrence Gerard Nassar, second son, born to Lebanese parents Fred and Mary Nassar, on August 16, 1963 in Farmington Hills, Michigan, a northwestern suburb of Detroit where literally every single resident is a pedophile, which is why it's typically referred to as Diddle Hills. And thank God that's not true. you imagine fucking living in Diddle Hills? That'd be a fucking living hell. No, it's actually a pretty nice, fairly affluent suburb. One of the safest cities in the U.S. Top 50 in terms of per capita income. 5-Hour Energy, Sharper Image have their world headquarters there, and it's the home of the U.S. headquarters of Bosch, TD Auto Finance, Mercedes-Benz, and more. And when Larry grew up there, it was home to even more company headquarters. Place with a lot of good jobs. And since this episode is about the culture of abuse in women's gymnastics more than it's about Larry's life, we're not going to spend any time covering the mundane details of his seemingly typical middle-class, abuse-free, as far as we know, one brother, no sister childhood. Larry attended North Farmington High School in 1978 when he was just 15. He started working as a student athletic trainer with the school's gymnastics team. He graduated in 1981, began studying at the University of Michigan. And then in 1985, 22-year-old Larry graduated from the University of Michigan with a degree in kinesiology. As a student in Ann Arbor, he worked with both the school's football team and the track and field program. No allegations of abuse from that period of time that we know of as of this recording. 1986, Larry was hired as an athletic trainer for the USA Gymnastics national team, and here we fucking go. His abuse will begin at some point over the next 5 years. Continuing his studies while working with gymnasts, Larry enrolled in Michigan State University's College of Osteopathic Medicine in 1988. A doctor of osteopathic medicine is not a real doctor. Any other doctor will tell you that. They are definitely looked down upon. They're quacks, frankly. No, I'm just trying to fire up some people listening who probably are osteopathic medicine professionals. No, they use the abbreviation DO instead of MD. They're fully trained, fully licensed doctors who specialize in the use of manual medicine. They are real doctors. And that includes hands-on work on joints and tissues and massage, according to the Mayo Clinic. In addition to working with the U.S. Gymnastics team from 1985 to 1989, Nassar also worked as a grad assistant, athletic trainer at Wayne State University while he studied for his doctorate. And before Nassar even got his degree, he was abusing. One of the earliest cases of his sexual abuse dates all the way back to 1990/1991, over 25 years before he was finally arrested. The victim was Trinae Gonzar, very young gymnast, 7 years old. Her hip had started popping out of the socket, so she saw Larry for some treatment. Already, I don't understand how her parents were cool with any of this. I mean, forget about the sexual abuse for a moment. If my fucking 7-year-old is having her hip pop out of the socket thanks to the sport that she is playing, well, guess what? She's not going to play that sport anymore. That serious of an injury, to me, makes that sport not worth the risk. At 7? But that's just me. A lot of parents feel different. I like sports for kids. Both my kids, have played sports growing up. So did I. But I don't think I could ever push a kid to commit to something as intense as competitive gymnastics with the wear and tear it puts on little bodies. Larry suggested to Trinae's mom that she needed additional work, so he invited her and her mom to his apartment. That's a bit of a red flag. Don't come to the clinic, come to my apartment. Another girl was leaving when she arrived, and Larry had her get undressed, sit in an ice bath before she got onto a makeshift exam table. Her mom sat just a few feet away from her, and Larry made casual conversation with her during the appointment. He also moved the table so that her mom would not be able to see everything he was doing, and he inserted his ungloved fingers into her vagina, which, if it doesn't go without saying, is not how you fucking treat a hip that keeps popping out of the socket. And I'm being half ridiculous here. If this actually did help, right, then it's more of an ethical dilemma. Like, what if, some digital manipulation of your vagina could fix hip problems? Like nothing else. Would you get that treatment? More importantly, would you allow your little kid to get that treatment? Not in some fucking dude's apartment, I wouldn't. Imagine if genital manipulation did cure a variety of ills, though. Like, if you're a dude, here's a dilemma. What if a lot of intense digital penetration of your prostate could cure cancer? But it has to be a lot, like hours and hours and hours. Would you get that treatment? You know? Oh, God damn. So you can cure me. Let me get this straight. You can cure me. But for the next 8 weeks, you're going to have to stick your entire hand into my butthole for at least 2 hours a day. Whew. I do want to live. I'm going to have to think about this. If you're wondering why I think about stuff like that, I also am wondering. It's a curse. Trinae's lawyer estimated she was molested 856 times by Larry Nassar over subsequent years, starting at 7 years old. So many treatments. And because it was a doctor doing this with her mom near for the longest time, Trinae didn't even know she was being molested. Such a mindfuck. Trinae only realized what was happening many years later, in the late 90s, when another gymnast told her that Larry had penetrated her with his fingers, and she was looking for support to prove that something abusive was going on, that was not normal treatment. And that is when Trinae had an epiphany and shouted, "He does that to me all the time." 1993 now. When Larry Nassar is actively abusing Trinae and others, he graduates from MSU with his osteopathic medical degree, and then he continues to work with more and more young female gymnasts. In 1996, he completes his family practice residency at St. Lawrence Hospital in Lansing, Michigan. That hospital has since merged with the Sparrow Hospital. He also gets married to Stephanie Lynn Anderson, an athletic trainer he met at Twizzstars Gymnastics Club. Twizzstars is going to come up a lot. Larry and Stephanie will remain married all the way until 2017. She'll file for divorce once the abuse allegations go public. The couple is estranged before that. Before the divorce, the couple will have 3 kids together, 2 daughters and a son, Caitlin, Carolyn, and Ryan, born in 2001, 2004, and 2006, respectively. One of Larry's daughters has autism, and he established the Gymnastics Dr. Autism Foundation to support gymnastics programs for kids with special needs, which helped shield him from a lot of early allegations of abuse, right? He was just, no, not Larry. He raises money for children with special needs. It can't be him. As mentioned, Larry met his wife at Twizzstars Gymnastics Club, which had 2 locations in Diamondale and DeWitt, Michigan. Diamondale. It's like diamond with no D. Diamondale. Twizzstars was founded by John and Catherine Geddert, a husband and wife duo. John Geddert will go on to coach the 2012 Olympic women's gymnastics team. And he was another sexual predator. Almost certainly. I'm going to say almost, because he died before his trial for multiple counts of sexual abuse and more began. But he was. I'll provide more details with his death when his death comes up in the timeline. Like the Curly Ranch, Twizzstars is a central location in the story. John Geddert, Larry Nassar became close friends, described collectively as a perfect team of abusers by the New York Times. Sarah Klein, a former gymnast, told the Times regarding John and Larry, "You had this good cop, bad cop dynamic that worked beautifully. John would beat us up and break us down, both mentally and physically, and then send us back to Larry, who would give us a tissue to dry our tears and sexually abuse us. Then he'd send us back to John, often on broken bones and pulled muscles, so the cycle could start all over again." Reports of various forms of abuse by John Geddert, physical and sexual, go back to the 80s. Geddert was a former college gymnast who started his career at Great Lakes Gymnastics in Lansing. Sarah Klein claimed that Geddert would talk frequently in inappropriate ways about underage girls' bodies, commenting often on their breasts and buttocks. Klein said, "I equate him to a mob boss who did anything he wanted and would stop at nothing to achieve what he wanted to achieve, whether that was a gold medal or making someone cry or quit the sport. Sometimes it felt like he was driving his gymnast to mental breakdowns for no reason." In the 2019 book, The Girls, gymnast Sarah Turisti described how Geddert was demanding, called girls worthless, sometimes threw clipboards at them. She wrote that he once told her that boys were going to love her because she couldn't keep her legs together. She was 10 when he allegedly said that. My God. Geddert and Nassar met when Nassar was a student of osteopathy in Michigan State. At Michigan State, he volunteered his services, later set up an office in the back of the Twizzstars gym. Nassar began volunteering about 20 hours a week, often had unsupervised access to young girls he was molesting. Sarah Turisti said that Nassar began abusing her at Twizzstars when she was 14. She said that Geddert once saw Nassar touching her nipples. Why is touching her nipples a part of fucking any treatment? And he just tossed out a joke about her breast size. So, cool couple of bros. And if gymnasts or parents complained about Geddert, the abuse would often worsen the next day. According to the New York Times, parents learned quickly to tread lightly around him or jeopardize their daughter's chances at a college scholarship or the Olympics. Sounds like this dude needed to be thrown a blanket party. Have a few parents, maybe wait for him outside his facility at night, throw a blanket over him, tune him up with a couple of brick bats, maybe some socks with some bars of soap in the ends, maybe some aluminum baseball bats. While, as they disguise their voices, they tell him to start treating the girls with a little more respect, or this won't be the last blanket party he receives. I wish beatdowns like that showed up a lot more in these stories. I feel like a real, solid beatdown is just such an excellent behavior modifier. A couple blanket parties like that, and I bet Johnny would have started treating gymnasts with a lot more respect. Monroe was in gymnastics for a while when she was real little, like kindergarten age, and she was good. Showed a lot of potential. She suddenly wanted to stop doing it, and she's always been a little fickle. And I was pretty bummed because I thought she could have been amazing. And I will say this episode has me feeling very good that my daughter decided to not pursue gymnastics further. One parent said she felt like she had to ask for permission to take her daughter on family vacations because Geddert demanded they attend every practice. She said, honestly, John was terrifying, intense in the gym, and arrogant. And he scared parents, girls, and coaches, everyone. But when you're living in it, you think these are amazing coaches and what a blessing it is to be a part of this. Rita Weber, the mother of 2012 Olympic gold medalist Jordan Weber, described Gettert as a cult leader who convinced people he could make or break a girl's career. Parents felt special if they were part of his inner circle and didn't want to damage the relationship by complaining. In both 2011 and 2013, Gettert was questioned by the police about some assault and battery accusations made against him. Made against him. And this involves some adults this time, not kids. This dude sounds like he was not mentally stable. I watched some videos of him on YouTube, and he seemed a bit unhinged to me. 2011, he was accused of assaulting a woman in the gym parking lot by stepping on her foot and then chest bumping her to prevent her from walking away. 2013, a gymnast accused him of stepping on her foot and also grabbing her arm. Prosecutors declined to press charges in these incidents. And before moving forward, that's a fucking weird foot move. I hadn't heard of the step on somebody's foot so they can't get away from me move. That's odd. Also, where were these women's boyfriends, brothers, husbands, fathers? Someone does that to Lindsay or Monroe, and I feel like they've given me permission to try to really hurt them. And I know that's not the best way to handle shit like this, because then you can come across like the crazy person. You can get hurt. You can get in legal trouble. But I'm just surprised I don't hear about retribution in more situations like this. But I guess people like, this guy John, they do shit like this to people they feel like they can get away with it with. They're pretty cowardly in who they choose. Okay, now let's transition back to Larry Nassar. In 1996, Nassar was appointed National Medical Coordinator for Team USA Gymnastics. He attended the Olympics that year. And as his access to athletes increases, so does the frequency of his abuse, it seems. This volunteer position with USAG gave Nassar a prestigious reputation as a skilled doctor. In reality, he'd actually just finished his residency, didn't have that much experience. But according to an article on thecut.com, in sports medicine, the caliber of athlete one treats is taken to be correlated with curative power. So now, Larry is held in very high regard. He's got to be one of the best, if not the best. He's more respected, which will make girls, more reluctant to question his creepy treatments. Gymnasts will later recount being assaulted in Nassar's home, in his office at MSU, at the Twistars Gymnastics Club, and at various athletic events and competitions all around the world. He'll continue to work with a lot of the same girls over long periods of time, which, gives him plenty of time to do his grooming. He ingratiated himself with gymnasts by talking to them, listening to them when it seemed like no one else would, gave them food and snacks if they were hungry, won their trust, by presenting himself as their protector, right? The guy who fixes them, the guy who helps keep their Olympic dreams alive. Parent after parent felt, grateful towards Larry for taking such great care of their daughters, for treating certain injuries with his intravaginal adjustments. As time goes on, Nassar finds more and more evidence that back and hip problems can be truly alleviated through pelvic floor physical therapy, which is actually a thing. This is how he's able to get away with his shit. He did. Pelvic floor physical therapist Rhonda Cotarinos stated in the cut.com article that there is truly a correlation between pelvic floor dysfunction and strenuous exercise in young female athletes, possibly because developing the glute muscles causes pelvic muscles to shorten, and that pelvic pain can then often present as lower back pain. Furthermore, there actually is one method of treatment that involves a specialist, who is almost always female, who does insert her fingers into a patient's vagina to access certain muscles that cannot be reached in that same way from any other location. And I know that feels like some of my bullshit, but this is a real thing. So, holy shit, there are some non-sexual treatments that do involve digitally entering a vagina. And when I really think about that, I guess it does kind of make sense. It seemed crazy to me at first. But there are also proven medical techniques for non-sexual ailments that involve the penis. Right? I was too embarrassed to bring it up earlier, but sometimes I will administer some of these treatments to myself. Sometimes if I'm experiencing a lot of muscle tension, my neck and or upper back, or if I'm having a tension/stress headache, I will medically pull and push the skin of my erect penis back and forth until ejaculation, because that somehow releases some of the muscular tension and stress. Not sure what the academic and medical literature is saying about this, but anecdotally, it works. It works, and I'm being absurd. But seriously, there is validity for pelvic floor therapy, which I did not know about. But is it appropriate to perform on underage girls, right? In some settings, I'm sure, when the girl and her guardian are properly informed, when consent is given, when more than one medical professional, I imagine, is present in the room, and a guardian is near, and gloves are worn, etc. Nassar was definitely not doing this appropriately at all. Nassar did not follow any proper procedures for true pelvic floor therapy treatment. He never really explained what he was doing to the girls, meaning he did not have informed consent from them or their guardians. Also, didn't use gloves, which is a huge no-no. And making it painfully obvious why he was really doing this, he used this treatment to supposedly treat shit like ankle and knee injuries, which is fucking nonsense. Also never called it pelvic floor physical therapy. He called it myofascial release, or as I mentioned earlier, intravaginal adjustment. Right? Myofascial release, now that has nothing to do with this. And breast massages and anal finger insertion, which he did, that's not part of pelvic floor therapy. Nassar assaulted numerous patients this way, with their parents or other people nearby, sometimes even in the same room. TheCut.com summed up Nassar's little racket very well in a 2018 article. Much loved Larry placed himself in a position of authority in the least monitored space full of children and proceeded to become the most successful pedophile in sports history. Such a weird phrase there. Most successful pedophile. Beyond the choice of medical school, the apparent research interest in the sacrotuberous ligament, the intense focus on a world populated by 11-year-old girls, the useful belief in alternative therapies, there was also this, his incredible brazenness. Nassar molested young girls in his office while their fathers watched. He molested elite athletes under blankets in busy gyms teeming with people. Even a paranoid parent would not have perceived a meeting with a doctor in an open gym a few feet away to be an encounter requiring vigilance. Your daughter was safe because you never left her side. When mothers might have a moment of pause, a flicker of suspicion, there was the reassuring thought that no man would try something right in front of them. Fucking crazy. I can't think of an equivalent of someone doing this, right? Literally molesting girls directly in front of their parents, without their parents having any idea what was happening. Also, if you look online for demonstration videos on the myofascial release of the sacrotuberous ligament, which was something he talked about a lot, it does look like people are having their buttholes massaged. Like one of the masseuse's thumbs is just centimeters away from going in a legit, massage treatment. And I bring this up because, just to illustrate that there are legitimate sports recovery techniques where a medical professional's hands are going to be all around a woman's genitals. And Larry, very hyper aware of this. And just like a cult leader who often convinces people to join their cult by playing on beliefs they already have and accept, and then pivoting a bit into new, more extreme beliefs that serve the cult leader, Larry was able to trick people by showing them examples of known, legitimate treatments that other people are doing, and then pivoting a bit into sexual abuse. In August of 1997, Nassar completed a primary care sports medicine fellowship, now becomes a team physician and an assistant professor at the MSU College of Osteopathic Medicine. Just climbing the ranks. Also started working as a team physician at Holt High School in Holt, Michigan, so he can access even more kids because he is fucking insatiable. That year, 16-year-old gymnast Larissa Boyce was participating in a youth program at MSU under coach Kathy Klages, who was friends with Nassar. Larissa had been sexually abused by Nassar 6 years earlier in 1991. Now in 1997, she felt ready to tell somebody. And when she told Klages, Kathy now interrogated the girls and told them it was just a misunderstanding. Coach Klages will later get into a lot of trouble herself for not reporting incidents like this to authorities. And in my mind, in this situation, that doesn't necessarily make her a monster, right? Larry was very manipulative and convincing. He may have fully convinced Kathy that his methods were sound and that they were, not unscrupulous, and that some girls just didn't understand what he was really trying to do for them. Nassar tricked a lot of girls, tricked a lot of parents, tricked a lot of coaches, just tricked a lot of people. He victimized a lot more people than just the girls he actively molested, and he molested so many. Klages told Larissa that she could report the assaults, but it would have serious consequences for both herself and Larry. At this point, Larissa did not want to get anyone in trouble. Next time she saw Larry, he told her that he had spoke to Kathy, and now poor Larissa apologizes, says it's all just a big misunderstanding, and now she thinks it's her fault. I am glad, by the way, if you're listening to this episode and you're getting worked up about some of this stuff, a lot of justice does get dealt out towards the end, which is not always the case, and it's pretty satisfying. Additionally, in 1997, a parent reported a concern about Nassar to John Geddert, but, he did not notify the police per a 2017 lawsuit. And that'll happen a lot with Geddert because he's also a pedophile. Allegedly, but he was. I feel like he knew what Larry was doing, and Larry knew what he was doing. 1998, Nassar began abusing the 6-year-old daughter of a family friend. Man, guess all the girls he had access to through work just wasn't enough for him. She later told the police that he penetrated her vagina with his fingers every other week for 5 years. My God. This guy just fucking constantly had his fingers in kids. The Lansing State Journal also reported that in 1998, a student athlete at MSU reported concerns about Nassar to trainers or coaches, but MSU failed to take any action. That same year, another parent told John Geddert, that her daughter was sexually abused by Nassar at Twistars, John's facility. Again, he doesn't report him. In 2000, a second MSU student-athlete reports concerns about Nassar to trainers or coaches, but the university again failed to take any action per a 2017 lawsuit. A member of the MSU volleyball team stated that by 2003, reports about Nassar were so well known that he was commonly called the crotch doc. He's fucking known as the crotch doc. We're still over a decade away from him being taken down. One of the MSU victims was former distance runner Natalie Stein. She was assaulted by Nassar twice in the spring of 2004. MSU athletes would go to Jenison Fieldhouse to receive treatment, and sometimes Nassar was the doctor on duty. He's also the primary physician for women's gymnastics and rowing. And Stein said, "I remember it as being common knowledge. Everybody knew if you went to him, you got weird treatment." Kate Hannon, a rower, told the New York Times that Nassar regularly massaged her breasts under the pretext of treatment, saying that she had popped a rib. And she noticed once that he appeared to be blatantly aroused during her, quote, treatment. Yeah, that's a red flag. When your doctor is squeezing your breast and has a notable or noticeable hard-on, you might want to share that info with some other doctors, right? Find out if what he's doing is legit or not legit. Gymnast Lindsay Lemke said that Nassar once did acupuncture in her pubic area. Told her, "I do this to Olympians, to a lot of people." He's not an acupuncturist. Runner Christy Achenbach went to Nassar in 1999 for a hamstring injury. But during the appointment, Nassar inserted his fingers into her vagina without a glove. She discussed a vaginal procedure with her parents and her coach, and then no one did anything about it. She told her teammates they didn't think the treatment was abnormal because he was also doing that shit to them. Brienne Randall Gay knew right away, though, that her exam was not legit. She was 17 years old when she went to see Nassar for scoliosis treatment in 2004. During her appointment, Nassar gratuitously massaged her breasts, also attempted to put his fingers into her vagina, but she objected. She told her mom, and her mother filed a complaint with the Meridian Township Police. A rape kit was collected at the local hospital. Detective Andrew McCready then had Nassar come in for questioning. Nassar told him that, he touched Brienne's perineum, which was part of treatment. The treatment I referenced, earlier, that sacrotuberous ligament release, and that treatment was published in legit medical journals. He presented a fucking PowerPoint presentation with medical journal sources about this therapy for the detective. He was convincing because the real treatment does look pretty creepy. He had evidence that seemed to back up what he was doing as being medically valid. He had perfected this abusive grift. And Detective McCready informed Brienne's mom that the case now was closed because no crime had been committed. Right? He's such a sneaky fucker. Additionally, the Lansing State Journal reported that in 2004, a victim from Ingham County, Michigan, told her parents about sexual abuse committed by Larry Nassar, but her parents did not report it to the police. Next decade goes very well for Nassar. More girls talk to their coaches or their parents about him. More complaints are filed with USAG, but it's all swept away. Larry continues to convince everyone that what he is doing is legitimate. He continues to molest literally hundreds of his underage patients, and frequently. 2014, it looks for a moment like a complaint against Larry is going to be taken more seriously. This year, MSU launches a Title IX investigation into Larry Nassar's conduct after cheerleader Amanda Tomashow now files a complaint against him with the Title IX office and the university police. And good on Amanda, right? Pursuing this to the fullest. Nassar, now 50 years old, is placed on leave by MSU during the investigation. Title IX investigator Christine Moore interviews 3 osteopathic physicians and an athletic trainer, and they all believe that Nassar's conduct is medically appropriate. Fuck. All of them worked for MSU and knew Nassar personally, so a bit of a conflict of interest. Investigator Moore concluded that Amanda just did not understand the nuanced difference between medical treatment and a sexual massage. Right again, fucking guy was slick. The final report stated Dr. Nassar has presented on this nationally and internationally, has videos posted to the web that explain the procedure, and is widely known for this work. We cannot find that the conduct was medically inappropriate and thus cannot find it was sexual in nature. The dean of the College of Osteopathic Medicine, Dr. William Strample, instructed Nassar to have a chaperone in the room going forward to avoid skin-to-skin contact with patients. But Nassar does not adhere to these decrees. Just keeps doing what he's been doing. Nassar retired that year as the USA Gymnastics medical coordinator, but announced he would remain team doctor for women's artistic gymnastics. Next year, in 2015, the MSU police send their investigation to the Ingham County prosecutor, requesting charges for another misdemeanor sexual offense committed by Larry. But the prosecutor declined to press charges because they felt they could not sustain their burden at trial. Right, again, he just fucking sneaks by. Finally, some allegations surfaced that won't be so easily dismissed or swept under the rug. A gymnast known as Athlete A makes a report of sexual abuse against Larry Nassar in June of 2015. Athlete A was 17-year-old Maggie Nichols. Her identity would remain anonymous for the next 3 years, and then she would allow herself to be publicly identified. Maggie was a star gymnast who had qualified for elite gymnastics at the age of 13, made the U.S. national team at 15. She was considered second only in skill to Simone Biles, and 2015 was a big year for her. Maggie was featured in some Olympic promos, was on track to be selected for the Olympic team. She was training with other gymnasts at the prestigious Caroli Ranch in Huntsville, Texas, when her abuse occurred. Gymnasts there totally isolated from the outside world, right? It was just them, the Carolis, other staff, parents not even allowed to fucking visit. There's barely even cell reception. Parents were supposed to just trust the process and believe that sending their daughters here would turn them into elite Olympic athletes. According to the Athlete A documentary, girls trained 7 hours a day at the ranch in an incredibly competitive environment. Gymnasts came to camp for 5 days each month during gymnastics season. Camp was invitation only, so it was considered an honor to even just be there at all. Didn't always feel like an honor, though. Here, gymnasts would use moldy showers, sleep with stained blankets. Food was reportedly so bad, many of the girls went hungry. To many, Larry was the only bright light at the Caroli camp. He was kind, funny. He snuck the girls snacks, built trust with them, just typical grooming. He also, of course, administered a lot of creepy treatments and massages in a back room of the ranch that involved sticking his ungloved fingers in their vaginas and rectums. Ugh. Quick little random note here before moving forward about how little I realized I knew about correct anatomical terms. It felt weird for me when I was putting the notes together to say butthole there. So I was going to go with anus, but then I wasn't sure that the anus was a butthole. I thought maybe I could say rectum. So I Googled anus. I actually Googled anus versus rectum. And I expected both words to refer to the exact same body part. No, sir. Just so you know, the anus, you probably already know this, but I didn't. Anus is the opening at the end of the digestive tract, so it is technically your butthole. Your rectum, not your butthole, which was news to me. It's 5 or 6 inches long. It's this tube, lower part of the large intestine that connects to the colon and stores stool from the colon until it passes through the anus. So it's a little connecting like highway from the colon to the butthole. So if you're pushing into a butt, you're going past the anus into the rectum. I'll be damned. Rectum's not your butthole. Anus is. The more you know. I love those notes. In her interview for the Athlete A documentary, Maggie said that she received these creepy treatments from Larry and that he would just do it right there in the back room. She continued, and I was just kind of confused and wondering what it was. It didn't seem right because I grew up always going to physical therapy and stuff because I had many injuries growing up and I'd never experienced anything like that. So I thought I'd ask Allie, referring to Olympic gymnast Allie Raisman here, just because, we were really close friends and she was older too and has been to national team camps and has worked with them before. So I just kind of asked her. I was like, does he do this to you? Is this normal? And she said, yeah, he does it to me too. In the spring of 2015, a coach, Sarah Jancy, overheard Maggie speaking with Allie Raisman about these treatments. Jancy first reached out to Maggie's parents. Good on fucking Sarah. And by June 17th, she had informed USA Gymnastics about the allegation. Right? Finally, a coach who works, around Larry seems suspicious of him and is doing something about it. Gina Nichols, Maggie's mom, said in her documentary interview that Jancy called her, said she overheard Maggie and another athlete saying Nassar was touching her funny. Maggie told her that Larry was touching her genitals and inserting ungloved fingers into her vagina. Maggie's mom wanted to make a police report immediately. Oh, fuck yeah. Coach Jancy told her that she was going to call Rhonda Fain, the VP of USA Gymnastics, a former elite-level gymnast herself, who was the head coach of the University of Florida women's gymnastics team that won 3 consecutive championships, 2013, 2014, and 2015, and had just left to take charge of the USAG women's program. Rhonda will soon leave her long and heralded gymnastics career in disgrace due to not taking Nassar's claims more seriously, or the claims against Nassar. Right? That fucking piece of shit not only molested hundreds and hundreds of girls, some of them hundreds and hundreds of times, he also helped destroy so many otherwise wonderful careers. When you factor in the parents of all the girls he molested as well, this motherfucker inflicted serious trauma on thousands of people. After Coach Jancy made her call, Steve Penny, the president of USAG, contacted Gina the next day. Gina told Steve Penny that the police needed to be contacted. Penny assured her USAG, would take care of making the report. But then weeks passed. Gina and Maggie, they didn't hear shit. and Nassar was still conducting the same exams on more girls. Then the Nichols family is contacted and told to keep things quiet. Instead of immediately reporting the sexual abuse allegation, what the USAG actually did was hire Fran Sepler, an HR expert who investigates sexual harassment in the workplace. That's not good. Finally, 3 to 4 weeks after Maggie's accused Nassar of sexual abuse, Steve Penny called the Nichols family, said they wanted Maggie to speak to Sepler. All the while, Maggie was still competing in competitions. Steve Penny assured her parents USAG would take care of Nassar, and they believed him. But they wouldn't take care of Nassar. July 24, 2015, a private investigator hired by USAG now recommends that the organization should report Larry to law enforcement. 3 days later, July 27th, a gymnastics official calls the FBI Indianapolis office where the USAG headquarters is located. The next day, USAG Chairman Paul Perilla and President Steve Penny meet with FBI agents. USAG gives the FBI the contact info of the 3 gymnasts, Maggie Nichols, Allie Raisman, and Michaela Maroney, another Olympic gymnast. And USAG turns over copies of Nassar's demonstration videos, which shows him touching around girls' genitals with ungloved hands. Some videos also show his hands under a towel between girls' legs. Just fucking brazen. In fact, over the years, Nassar had posted so many demonstration videos online for the world to see, it made, what he was doing seem so much more legitimate. I mean, how wrong could it be if he's posting videos of what he's doing openly on YouTube, showing colleagues, parents, showing victims these videos? W.J. Abbott, the former special agent in charge of the Indianapolis FBI office, told the New York Times that he didn't watch the videos, but some of his colleagues did, and he said, "The reaction of my special agents, who were very well versed in this, was one of disgust. That is why we worked with such urgency." But they didn't actually work with a lot of urgency. The next day, Larry Nassar was relieved of further assignments with USAG without any official announcement, which is fucking finally, it's happening, but he still hasn't been charged with anything. In fact, that won't happen for quite some time. A later statement from USAG explained USA Gymnastics understood from its meeting with the FBI that it should not take any action nor communicate anything that might interfere with the FBI's investigation. In late July, early August 2015, FBI agents now asked gymnast Michaela Maroney to travel to Indianapolis from California and discuss allegations against Nassar, but she declines. Her first interview will be conducted over the phone instead. At this point, Allie Raisman and Maggie Nichols still had not received word from law enforcement. Part of the delay was due to jurisdictional issues. Investigators had to make sure this was all done by the book so that when they went to make their charges, they would stick. When Special Agent Abbott was later asked why officials did not notify gymnasts' parents or coaches about Nassar at this time, he said, "That's where things can get tricky. There is a duty to warn those who might be harmed in the future, but everyone is still trying to ascertain whether a crime has been committed, and everybody has rights here." And that is true. He said that there was a vigorous debate about whether Nassar was performing legitimate medical procedures as well, right? He still is fucking tricking people. A lot of people are like, I don't know. He might just be a good doctor. September 12th, Michaela Maroney, directed by USAG to contact the FBI office in East Lansing, Michigan now. Michaela's mom calls repeatedly, receives no response, according to Michaela's lawyer, John Manley. September 27, 2015, Larry Nassar announces his retirement from the women's team staff so he can run for the school board and hold Michigan. Yeah, let's get this guy in the school board. He can't stay away from kids. Nassar will post on Facebook, "I decided to retire in part to prepare for the HPS School Board of Education election. I knew that if I dedicated the time needed to be at the 2016 Rio Olympics, I would not be able to prepare a campaign for the school board. It is time for me to place my efforts locally and be a greater part of my children's education. Time to help the next generation have the opportunities that I had and give back to the community. It is time to stop fingering gymnasts and instead start fingering my own kids and the friends of my kids. And, of course, finger other sexy children in my community." He didn't write those last few lines. He probably wrote them in a rough draft. I'm going to say he wrote them in a rough draft. And it was like, that's too much. He fucking scrapped that. He deleted that little part. After leaving USAG, Nassar did continue to volunteer at Twistars Gymnastics Club and work for MSU in late 2015 and in early 2016. Parents of these organizations were not notified about these sexual abuse allegations, and because of this, he is kept abusing. New York Times later identify over 40 girls and women who said Nassar molested them between July of 2015 and September of 2016 when the abuse went public. Damn. February 2018, the Times asked the FBI for a comment and they issued a 112-word statement. The Times reported, "The agency left unaddressed the oft-repeated claim by USA Gymnastics officials that after initially presenting the sexual assault allegations to the FBI in July of 2015, they came away with the impression that federal agents had advised them not to discuss the case with anyone. The ensuing silence had dire consequences. as the many girls and young women still seeing Dr. Nassar received no warning. Man, that is fucking brutal. By the spring of 2016, the Nichols family had still not heard anything from the FBI. They didn't want to go public because they didn't want to jeopardize the investigation or upset USA Gymnastics, which could put her spot on the Olympic team in jeopardy. Allie Raisman and her family hadn't really heard anything about the investigation. As well, they were told the FBI would get in touch with them at some point. It took almost a full year for the FBI to finally get in contact with the Nichols family. May of 2016, USAG Chairman Paul Perilla and President Steve Penny traveled to Los Angeles to make the same report at a different FBI office. And this is what seemed to really jumpstart the federal investigation, according to the New York Times. Michaela Maroney interviewed in person May 17th. June 13th, Gina Nichols, gymnast Maggie Nichols' mom, received an email from LA agent Michael Hess informing her he was looking into a complaint about misconduct and asking her to call when she had time. Maggie spoke with Agent Hess in Minneapolis a few days later. Allie Raisman, also contacted finally by the FBI in the summer of 2016. Meanwhile, 13 women participate in the July 2016 Olympic trials, including Maggie Nichols. And her family notices something's off with how Maggie's being treated by U.S. Gymnastics officials as soon as they arrive. Her parents normally had reserved seats at events. Cameras followed them to capture their reactions as they did other parents, but at the Olympic trials, they did not have reserved seats. No camera crew was following them. Well, Maggie will score 6 at the Olympic trials, not make the cut for the team, not even as an alternate, and a lot of people feel like this is because she made these accusations, and now she's being punished, which is beyond fucked up. Final 5 were Simone Biles, Allie Raisman, Lori Hernandez, Gabby Douglas, and Madison Koshin. The alternates were Michaela Skinner, Reagan Smith, and Ashton Locklear. Simone, Allie, Gabby, Madison, and Ashton all will later publicly state they had been abused by Larry Nassar. August 4th, 2016. The Indianapolis Star publishes an investigative piece about how USA Gymnastics has been handling sexual abuse complaints. This article is super important because it exposes sexual abuse in gymnastics to a wider audience, much wider audience, and leads to several more women coming forward with reports about Larry Nassar. This whole story starts to trend now. And that kickstarts a state investigation that is now carried out simultaneously with the existing FBI investigation. The Indy Star had found 4 cases where USAG was warned about suspected abuse committed. Not even by Nassar, but by various coaches, but never initiated any reports to authorities. And then those coaches then went on to abuse at least 14 underage gymnasts after USAG had received warnings they didn't tell anybody about. USA Gymnastics would not disclose the total number of sexual misconduct allegations made each year, but Indy Star learned the organization had compiled complaint dossiers on at least 54 coaches from 1996 to 2006, and that these dossiers, there we go, not passed along to authorities, but instead just kept in a drawer that no one was going to fucking look at their executive office in Indianapolis. For example, in 2011, USAG received a complaint about Coach Marvin Sharp, who was a 2010 National Women's Coach of the Year, and the complaint described inappropriate touching of minors and warned he should never be around children. It wasn't until 2015 that the USAG reported Sharp to the police. Sharp was charged with touching a gymnast's genitals, trimming her pubic hair, and taking sexually explicit pictures of her, starting at the age of only 12. So, taking a lot of child porn photos. Sharp will then die of suicide in jail, which is fucking great news. I actually wish jails and prisons made it easier for pedophiles to follow his lead, right? How great would it be? When sex offenders are processed into prison, they're given like a welcome packet. They should be given in their welcome packet, it should just be like a noose and an illustrated set of instructions regarding how to best hang oneself in your cell. There could be like a little hanging hook in the cell ceiling as well, right? Paint a little arrow pointing towards it with the following words behind it. Place non-noose end of hanging room here, pedo. Maybe a little heart, fucking encouragement. Do it. USAG had another file full of complaints about Tennessee gymnastics coach Mark Schiefelbein, dating back several years. The girl's parents reported him to the police in 2002 after he sexually assaulted the girl and recorded a sexually explicit video of her. Her parents' complaints were only made public when prosecutors subpoenaed records from USAG. Schiefelbein would end up being convicted of aggravated sexual battery and sexual exploitation of a minor in 2003 and would be sentenced to 36 years in prison. I like it. Over 3 decades. In 2003, Coach James Bell was arrested for molesting 3 gymnasts in Rhode Island. USAG had a complaint file on him dating back at least 5 years prior to his arrest. Indy Star also found police reports about Bell from Oregon, where in 1990, an underage gymnast reported he climbed on top of her, told her he wanted to take off her pants. In 1991, 10-year-old girl reported that Bell stuck his hand inside her shirt and just pinched her breast. He was not charged until his former employer reported him in Rhode Island, and then he goes on the run, hides out for 11 years before he's caught and arrested in 2015. Then pleads guilty to 3 counts of child molestation and is only sentenced to 8 years in prison. That feels real fucking light, especially considering he went into hiding. USAG received at least 4 complaints about Georgia coach William McCabe dating back to 1998, when Florida gym owner Dan Dickey warned that McCabe, quote, should be locked in a cage before someone is raped. Fucking strong words. McCabe was first suspected of abuse in 1996. That year, he was fired from Gymnastics World in Cape Coral, Florida, owned by Dan Dickey. 1998, Mr. Dickey learned that Mr. McCabe and his deviant Dickey were coaching in Tallahassee, so he sent a letter to USAG. The letter described how McCabe was fired after a staff member reported that he bragged about being around a 15-year-old girl in her underwear, said he thought he would be able to, quote, fuck her very soon. Also bragged about having sex with team gymnasts and other clubs. Part of the letter read, to allow this scumbag to continue working within the gymnastics community would be a terrible insult to all of the gym owners and coaches who have worked so hard to build up the reputation of gymnastics. USAG, again, doesn't do shit with this allegation, does not report it to the police. A USAG representative responded 4 days later to Dickey saying they were awaiting an official letter of complaint from a parent and an athlete. I will add your letter to the file in the event we receive the letter and an investigation is commenced. By this point, Tallahassee gym owner Jan Guinapero sent a fax to USAG after McCabe resigned amid allegations there of sexual harassment. Her fax included 6 pages of allegations with names and contact information of other gyms that had also fired him or gyms where he had left under questionable circumstances. This dude was a loose cannon. McCabe was still coaching months later after all this. So now she wrote 2 more letters to the USAG. Around this time, McCabe began sexually abusing girl, which would go on for several years. But still, USAG renewed his membership in December of 1999. By 2006, McCabe was a co-owner of Savannah Metro Gymnastics and Cheerleading in Rincon, Georgia. Lisa Ganser's daughter enrolled at this gym in 2002. Over a year later, Lisa received an anonymous packet that contained the complaint sent to USAG about McCabe. She called USAG, and an official confirmed his membership and actually told her there were no complaints against him. Damn. She confronted McCabe. He said the packet came from a disgruntled former business partner. But then in January of 2006, Lisa will find disturbing emails on her daughter's computer. The emails appeared to come from an Olympic gold medalist. They started off talking about gymnastics, but then the sender made explicit sexual requests and sent pics of a female's naked body. She contacted the FBI, and the investigators found that McCabe had sent those emails. He also had similar online interactions with at least 4 other minors. When McCabe was finally charged with molesting gymnasts, videotaping girls changing clothes, and posting pictures of them online. 2006, McCabe pled guilty to federal charges of sexual exploitation of children and making false statements and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. All right, there we 30 years. That's better than 8. 2013, Lisa Ganser's daughter filed a lawsuit against both McCabe and USAG. And when seeking to dismiss the lawsuit, USAG said the warnings from 1998 and 1999 did not give, quote, any foresight about McCabe's criminal misconduct and did not meet the reason to believe threshold of the reporting law. And that's bullshit. They argued that they were not liable because mandatory reporting laws in Florida and Indiana apply to individuals, not organizations. It's a weird thing to hide behind. During the lawsuit, USAG acknowledged that it had rarely forwarded allegations of child abuse to the police or CPS without being asked. Under oath, President Steve Penny said his predecessor, Robert Colarissi, explained why. Colarissi said he inherited a policy of dismissing complaints as hearsay unless they were signed by a victim or victim's parents. He said, what we're talking about is a policy that was a policy of the executive office. It feels like passing the buck, right? He was the president. He could have changed that policy. Michael Athens, USAG's attorney, told the Indy Star that those policies went back to the 90s and just really haven't changed. Colarissi acknowledged in a deposition that the organization dismissed the McCabe allegations as hearsay because a parent or victim did not make them. But God, there were so fucking many, though. It's not like it was one person. I mean, even then, they should at least look into it, but they just didn't look into just a pile of them. Yeah, no one interviewed the coaches even. Colarissi said in his 2015 deposition, in the sport of gymnastics, it's very competitive to gain and retain students and or athletes, and people might have all kinds of reasons for saying things. Steve Penny testified in a 2014 deposition that the possibility of a witch hunt could be very real, and they have to be careful about complaints because the coach is as much as a member as the athlete. And I do get that, but how is that a reason not to investigate the complaint on any level? You don't have to fucking publicly blast them all over the fucking internet, but you can at least talk to the police. Pretty important to find out the allegation is credible or not. In some cases, USAG did launch an internal investigation. Retired FBI agent Robert Agnew, who was kept on retainer to investigate complaints, said in a 2015 deposition that he sometimes disagreed with how the organization handled complaints, but he deferred to officials on whether or not to report allegations to the police or child welfare. Steve Penny said in his 2015 deposition that USAG followed reporting guidelines for state laws, but to the best of my knowledge, there's no duty to report if you are a third party to some allegation. You know, that lies with the person who has firsthand knowledge. I just wonder why even take allegations as an organization if you're not going to do anything with them? Why not just have a policy of just telling people who call to, hey, we're not going to do anything with this. You should just go directly to the police. I mean, this is fucking crazy. Like, we're not talking about toxic work environment or HR violations here. We're talking about like serious sexual crimes, felonies, ones involving victims who are minors. Why couldn't they just at least say like, yeah, you should talk to the cops? The Indy Star did note that the USAG launched a child abuse awareness campaign in 2012, encouraging local gyms to report to law enforcement. Even more reason for them then when people call to be like, hey, you know, just like our campaign says, you should talk to the police. Steve Penny released the following statement to the Indy Star, which was published in the article. USA Gymnastics has a long and proactive history of developing policy to protect its athletes and will remain diligent in evaluating new and best practices, which should be implemented. We recognize our leadership role is important and remain committed to working with the entire gymnastics community and other important partners to promote a safe and fun environment for children. USAG will settle this case in April of 2018 for a confidential amount of money. So they did have to pay out for the fuck-ups there. August 29, 2016, former gymnast, current lawyer, Rachel Denhollander now files a criminal complaint against Larry Nassar with the MSU police alleging that he sexually abused her in 2000. She was living in Louisville, Kentucky at this time. On August 25, 2016, the MSU police were informed that an out-of-state woman called dispatch to report that she was sexually assaulted by an MSU doctor over a decade ago. Rachel Denhollander wanted to meet investigators in person to present around 100 pages of medical documents she had compiled. Detective Lieutenant Andrea Munford was the one who spoke to her August 29th. Munford, already familiar with Nassar because of that 2014 Title IX investigation in Michigan. When she made a report, Denhollander was also speaking with the Indy Star. She had read the August 4th article, wanted to come forward. It inspired her to speak out against Nassar. Her allegations will be detailed in a later article. August 30th, 2016, MSU relieves Nassar of clinical and patient duties. Same day, Larry's interviewed by Detective Lieutenant Andrew Munford. Munford later recalled in the Athlete A doc that when she asked Nassar specific questions, he seemed real nervous. Started sweating, started stuttering, reframed the questions to blame the patient, questioned why the girls didn't say anything during the treatment. Nassar would also use a lot of anatomical terms when he spoke, as if to confuse the detective, and then say things like, you won't understand this stuff. But they did understand. It was clear to Detective Munford that the injuries he described treating did not require vaginal penetration as a solution. September 8, 2016, former Olympic medalist files an anonymous civil lawsuit in California alleging she was sexually abused by Nassar for 7 years, 1994 to 2000. Suit also alleged that USAG failed to act on suspicions about Nassar's conduct. Attorney John Manley said his client reported that USAG allowed Nassar to examine her alone in private rooms, which violates the written best practices and USAG standards of conduct. September 12, 2016, the Indy Star publishes an article about Larry Nassar featuring the allegations now from Rachel Denhollander and the former Olympic gymnast who had recently filed a lawsuit. At this time, Denhollander was still the only victim who had gone public with her identity. The other former gymnast was Jamie Dancer. She came forward publicly in 2017 and spoke in the Athlete A documentary. Rachel competed at a club in Michigan. She first met Larry at the MSU Sports Medicine Clinic in 2000 when she was 15 and was suffering from lower back and wrist pain. Rachel Denhollander told the Indy Star, over the last 16 years, I realized I have a responsibility. And the question about whether or not to speak publicly cannot center around what is easy for me. This isn't something I want to do. Denhollander received 5 treatments from Nassar, and the sexual abuse escalated at each appointment. Nassar touched her genitals, penetrated both her vagina and anus with his finger and thumb, and massaged her breasts, all to help with wrist and lower back pain. Rachel further described what happened in her documentary interview, saying, he asked to do myofascial release, which I knew was a legitimate physical therapy technique, and he did that with his right hand externally. He did legitimate therapy. and with his left, he sexually assaulted me under the towel. He would position himself in between me and my mom. But since she was so close, I presumed that she was aware of what was going on. I didn't know until months later she had no idea. Den Hollander told the Indy Star, I was terrified. I was ashamed. I was very embarrassed. And I was very confused, trying to reconcile what was happening with the person he was supposed to be. He's this famous doctor. He's trusted by my friends. He's trusted by these other gymnasts. How could he reach this position in the medical profession? How could he reach this kind of prominence and stature if this is who he is? Years later, she went to the head coach of the gymnastics facility where she worked and said that Larry sexually abused her. She was told that no one else had made those same reports and was cautioned against speaking out. Oh man, that's so fucked. She was discouraged from just, having him investigated, having him looked into. California lawsuit alleged that USAG hid complaints about Nassar, failed to adequately supervise him, claiming he would do anal and vaginal examinations of plaintiff and other gymnasts in the care of USA Gymnastics without gloves, a chaperone, and or any form of lubricant. These procedures were well outside any recognized and or accepted technique and were done for the perpetrator's own sexual gratification. The lawsuit stated that Nassar would fondle and grope the plaintiff's feet, ankles, thighs, buttocks, hips, waists, breasts, arms, shoulders, and neck, placing plaintiff under the impression this inappropriate contact was part of treatment. Nassar also talked to her about oral sex, told her other underage gymnasts were all about it. They were doing it. Fuck, how did he bring that up? So, this should really help your back and your wrist. Hey, quick question. Are you having anyone eat your pussy? A lot of the other girls are having their pussies eaten, which has helped their back and wrist pain. Just pass it along. You should try it. Thank you, doctor. Jamie Dancer had never told anybody about the abuse before 2016. In the Athlete A documentary, she talked about growing up in a harsh gymnastics environment, trained with Beth and Steve Rybacki at the Gliders Gymnastics gym from age 11 to age 18. Her dream was to go to the Olympics. She said that over the years, she competed with a variety of serious injuries, broken toes, a back fracture. But when she was injured, it seemed like no one believed her. She once lost 6 pounds when she was sick with the flu. Her coach told her, man, they had to figure out how to keep off that weight. She looked great. First met Larry Nassar when she went in for a routine physical. He had her undressed completely. Jamie would compete in the 2000 Olympics, but it wasn't a dream come true. Larry Nassar abused her at the Olympics. They had to train morning and night, and she needed daily adjustments for back pain, sometimes up to 4 times a day. So she's seen him frequently. She recalled how Larry would sneak him food, candy, leave things under their pillows, right? Similar to statements from other gymnasts in 2015. Jamie said, back then, I didn't even think of it as abuse. That's it's still psychological for me because I almost still feel bad for even saying the truth. I hate this sentence, but I actually looked forward to treatment. And because Larry was the only nice adult. He's really the only nice adult I can remember being a part of USA Gymnastics staff. How fucking sad about that culture that the only nice adult in the entire gymnastics team was a serial sexual abuser. 2016, she spoke with an attorney named John Manley. He agreed to take on her case, and he would eventually represent hundreds of other victims. The Indy Star spoke with a third gymnast named Jessica Howard, who was abused by Nassar when she was 15. She called him after the August 4th article came out. She said she didn't want to be included in the September article in any way, but her story was important because now they had 3 people given the same info about Nassar. After being shown a copy of the lawsuit, Nassar's attorney, Matthew Borgola, said, Dr. Nassar, to the extent the allegations are against him, adamantly denies any misconduct at this or any other time. Borgola also said Nassar's retirement had nothing to do with the allegations. Get the fuck out of here. But did acknowledge that USAG told Nassar about potential criminal allegations before he resigned. He said no agency contacted Nassar about the allegations. USAG claimed it forwarded to the authorities. MSU and Twistars told the Indy Star that USAG did not inform them of their concerns about Larry Nassar. According to Indy Star Investigations editor Steve Berta, when they first started the investigation into Nassar, they set up a meeting with his lawyer, and they were told, this is a very important man, and you're potentially going to ruin his reputation here. Tim Evans, an investigative reporter, did the interview with Nassar at his attorney's office. When asked if Nassar used manual penetration of the vagina as a medical procedure, Borgola responded, no, there's no circumstance that he ever penetrated her vagina in any way related to any procedure. And that is not a smart play. I'm surprised he didn't work the angle of course he did. It's all part of very legitimate treatment. Come on. But to backpedal now? Oh, man, makes him look even worse. According to Evans, Nassar was almost in tears, pleaded with him not to run the story because it would ruin his reputation and harm his family. The day after the publication of the September article, Nassar disputed USAG's statement that he was fired in 2015. USAG issued the following statement. Dr. Nassar is no longer affiliated with USA Gymnastics. Upon learning of athlete concerns, USA Gymnastics immediately notified law enforcement. Since then, we have cooperated fully with the law enforcement agency, including refraining from making further statements or taking any other action that might interfere with the agency's investigation. We are grateful to the athletes for coming forward to share their concerns. So they just straight up lied there. They had not immediately notified law enforcement in so many instances, as we've already went over. Nassar's attorney, Matt Bergula, issued a statement in response saying Dr. Nassar was never relieved of his volunteer position at USA Gymnastics. He considered retirement in 2013, long before the current allegations came to light, but was asked to stay by the coaches and athletes because they relied on his expertise to care for the gymnasts that represent our country. He later retired in 2015 after 29 years of service. Who else is going to stick their fingers in these athletes' vaginas? Huh? Who else is going to be fucking brave enough, courageous enough to do what it fucking takes to get him out there on the floor winning gold goddamn medals? He didn't say that part. He said his decision was not influenced by the current allegations because he was unaware of those allegations until yesterday. Instead, he retired because it was a voluntary position and he wished to pursue other interests outside of USA Gymnastics. During his retirement, Dr. Nassar continued to support USA Gymnastics and has been called upon by coaches and staff many times since his retirement to assist the athletes with various health issues. Since the allegations came to light, he has received words of support from dozens of former gymnasts and other members of the USA Gymnastics program. Nichols' family read the Indy Star article. They were fucking furious because USAG had told them not to speak out for so long. Gina Nichols now decided to reach out to John Manley. John Manley said in a later interview that Maggie's coach should have reported Nassar to the police, but she didn't. Instead, she reported the allegation to Rhonda Fain, head of the women's program. Fain should have then gone to the police, but she didn't. She told Steve Penny. He then should have gone to the police, but he also didn't. He hired a private investigator. Manley said this was a violation of both Indiana and Texas state law. September 20th, 2016 now. MSU fires Nassar from his position as associate professor with the College of Osteopathic Medicine. School said they fired him after learning he violated certain employment requirements put in place after the 2014 investigation. That same day, a search warrant was executed at Nassar's house. And now shit gets blown wide open. The police were able to obtain search warrants because victims reported he was doing treatments in his basement and that he had also sexually abused a non-patient, in the basement. During the search, investigator noticed that the trash had not been picked up and the can was full. The police found hard drives in the trash with Larry's name and number written on them. What a fucking idiot. These are hard drives full of a crazy amount of child pornography, by the way. This guy couldn't even bother to throw them away at the dump, right? Or in a grocery store dumpster, anywhere outside his house. Also, what a fucking maniac puts their fucking name and phone number. Might as well just write like child porn. Hey, I got a lot of important child porn here. I don't want to get in trouble. So if you find it, please just don't tell the police. Just call me. I'll come get it. Roughly 37,000 images of child sexual abuse material will be found on these hard drives, including videos that showed Nassar himself sexually assaulting girls in a pool. So many pictures. This guy was clearly addicted to underage porn. Probably didn't want to, take his precious hard drives and throw them away because he needed to constantly beat off to those pics. I feel like this dude probably fucking jerked off like his dick was also training to be in the Olympics. He actually almost got away with getting rid of all that child porn. His trash pickup was late the day the investigator searched his house. Inside the trash can, right? They find these hard drives, all these fucking pictures. If the trash would have been picked up on time, he would have gotten away with that. October 6th, 2016, Michigan Attorney General Bill Michigan Attorney General Bill Schuette. No, Michigan Attorney General. Very different. Bill Schuette announced that his office would now review the accusations against Nassar at the request of the MSU police. It's fucking crazy he still has not been arrested. Despite the horrific allegations against Nassar, November 8th, 2016, Nassar receives 2,730 votes, or 21% of the votes, for the Holt School Board. Oh, fuck yeah. November 21st, 2016, Nassar is arrested, finally in custody, charged with 3 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct with a person under 13. This abuse took place in his home in Holt, Michigan, in Ingham County between 1998 and 2005. Nassar pleads not guilty and then is released on $1 million bond. He won't stay out long. At a press conference, officials announced that they have received approximately 50 complaints alleging sexual abuse by Nassar, and that number is going to go up a lot. December 16, 2016, Larry is now indicted on federal child pornography charges and is taken back to jail. The charges allege that he had received or attempted to receive images of child porn in 2004 and had possessed child porn between 2003 and 2016. After the Indy Star story came out, many people were reluctant to believe or refused to believe that Nassar had assaulted so many young girls. A lot of his own victims initially refused to believe what he was charged with, right? That's how good a manipulation this dude is. Some of the victims thought the girls who came forward were just not remembering things correctly because they received the same treatments. Many girls who were assaulted thought that the victims, I wrote that down twice. It wasn't until Nassar was charged with possessing child pornography that his supporters changed their minds about it. Now parents started to question everything, ask their children about their experiences with him. For example, a mom named Jane told a journalist for thecut.com, all of a sudden the stuff you think is normal coming out of somebody else's mouth doesn't sound normal. She realized that it was not normal how she took her daughter to Nassar's home every week for treatment in Larry's basement, and that it was not normal that she was never billed for any of those treatments. Those are some red flags. December 21st, 2016, Nassar denied bond on the federal charges and will have to sit in a cell to await his trials. January 10th, 2017, 18 victims filed a federal lawsuit against Larry, MSU, USA Gymnastics, and Twistars Gymnastics Club, alleging sexual assault, battery, molestation, and harassment between 1996 and 2016. The lawsuit alleged that in 1999 and 2000, victims raised concerns to MSU coaches and or trainers, and the university did not launch an investigation. Lawsuit also alleged that in 1997, a parent expressed concerns to John Geddert, who did not report it to police. Finally, the lawsuit alleged that in 2004, allegations were made about Nassar to the Meridian Township Police Department, but he was not charged. Yeah, well, he was fucking pretty tricky. January 24th, 2017, the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs suspends Nassar's medical license. January 26th, police in Texas now confirm they're conducting a sexual assault investigation related to Nassar. An attorney for Bella and Marty Caroli revealed that the Texas Rangers came to the Caroli Ranch as part of the investigation. February 7th, an additional federal charge is filed against Nassar, alleging that he destroyed computer files that contained even fucking more porn. More than the 37,000 plus images they already had. That is an absurd amount of pornography, especially illegal underage pornography. God damn. February 13th, 2017, MSU gymnastics coach Kathy Klages is suspended after a woman claims in court records that Klages discouraged her from filing a sexual assault complaint against Nassar in the late 90s. The victim filed paperwork to join the federal lawsuit from January. February 13th, MSU athletic director Mark Hollis meets with Klages to discuss the allegation that the gymnastics team was discouraged from answering police questions about Nassar during a September meeting. In a letter addressed to Klages, Hollis wrote that she shared a highly emotional sense of shock that confused the athletes about who they could speak to. Her defense of Nassar created an emotionally charged environment, and his concerns led him to suspend her with pay. Then a second woman came forward to allege that in 1997, Klages asked her if Nassar had digitally penetrated her. When she said yes, Klages told her, there's no reason to bring it up. So that's not a good look. This woman alleged that Nassar held her down and performed an intravaginal procedure against her will after she declined. Her conversation with Klages did happen before that. Well, Klages announced her retirement very next day. February 17, 2017, district court judge rules that there was enough evidence for Nassar to stand trial in Ingham County, Michigan for 3 sexual assault charges. February 19th, former gymnast Jeanette Antolin, Jessica Howard, and Jamie Dancer make public allegations against Nassar in an interview with 60 Minutes. The gymnasts talked about their experience at the Caroli Ranch, how Nassar was kind to them when the Carolis were not, how he built trust with them so that they wouldn't question his treatments, and then even though he made them uncomfortable, they felt like they couldn't complain because they would risk their spot on the Olympic team roster. Marta and Belly Caroli gave a written statement to 60 Minutes where they denied the existence of an emotionally abusive environment, said they did not have knowledge of any complaint about Dr. Nassar until they learned he was dismissed from USAG in 2015. And many, of course, think that they are lying their asses off here. February 22nd, 2017. The police secured warrants for 22 new sexual assault charges against Nassar in Ingham County, and Eaton County, Michigan. Over half of those charges are related to his work with MSU Sports Medicine. The rest connected to the Twistars Gymnastics Club. Steve Penny resigns as president of USA Gymnastics March 16, 2017, after the Olympic Committee Board calls for him to step down. March 17th, MSU completes a second Title IX investigation against Larry Nassar regarding Rachel Den Hollander's complaint. The report concluded that Nassar violated university policy. Let's put it mildly. April 6, 2017, State Disciplinary Board revokes Nassar's medical license for at least 3 years, requires him to pay at least $100,000 before reapplying. June 23rd, An Ingham County judge rules that there is enough evidence for Nassar to stand trial for 12 counts now of first-degree criminal sexual misconduct. June 30th, an Eaton County judge rules there's enough evidence for Nassar to stand trial there for 7 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct. Hours later, 23 more girls and women joined the federal lawsuit against Nassar, MSU, and USA Gymnastics. By this point, 119 women and girls have filed lawsuits against him. Just keeps growing and growing. July 11, 2017, Larry Nassar pleads guilty to 3 federal charges: obtaining and possessing child porn and destroying computer files to hamper the investigation. In exchange for the guilty plea, federal prosecutors agreed to not charge Nassar with alleged sexual exploitation of children in relation to 4 victims. In the fall of 2017, 3 members of the Fierce 5 2012 Olympic gymnastics gold medal winning team publicly stated they were abused by Larry Nassar. All 5 will eventually come forward. Yeah. The first was Michaela Maroney, who issued a statement on October 18th with the hashtag #MeToo. Maroney posted on Twitter, "I was molested by Dr. Larry Nassar. He told me I was receiving medically necessary treatment that he had been performing on patients for over 30 years. It started when I was 13 years old at one of my first national team training camps in Texas. And it didn't end until I left the sport. It seemed whenever and wherever this man could find the chance, I was treated. It happened in London before my team and I won the gold medal, and it happened before I won my silver. For me, the scariest night of my life happened when I was 15 years old. I had flown all day and night with the team to get to Tokyo. He'd given me a sleeping pill for the flight, and the next thing I know, I was alone with him in his hotel room getting a treatment. I thought I was going to die that night." Jesus. The fuck did he do to her when she was passed out? I should add, there have been other allegations, but no criminal charges, from girls over the years accusing Larry of raping them while they were passed out. In a later interview with Dateline, Maroney revealed that the day after the Tokyo incident, she spoke up to other gymnasts and John Geddert. She said, "I was in the car driving back to the hotel. I even said out loud that last night Larry was fingering me. People in the car gasped, so she knew they heard her, but nothing was done." Allie Raisman told Dateline that Michaela described what happened in graphic detail, but John Geddert, right, fellow pedo, of course said and did nothing. Michaela said, that was the moment that I shut it down. In my head, I was never going to speak out about him again, and I was just going to go along with it. Allie Raisman talked about what she went through in an interview with 60 Minutes, which aired November 12th. In an interview with Time magazine and in her book Fierce, Allie further detailed the sexual abuse she experienced. Once when she was competing in the Netherlands, Nassar knocked on her door about 8 p.m. to offer her a massage, right? She's 16. She noticed that during the treatment, Nassar closed his eyes and became out of breath. She didn't know she was being sexually assaulted and thought he was just tired or jet lagged. She told Time magazine, "I know people will say, why didn't she tell her mom? Why didn't she say anything? But those questions are unfair. The fact is, I didn't really know it was happening to me. What people don't get is that he was a doctor. I would never have imagined that a doctor would abuse me or manipulate me so badly." She didn't fully realize she'd been sexually assaulted until July of 2015 when Steve Penny asked her to speak to the hired investigator. The investigator asked her about Nassar and his treatments, and she tried to make excuses. Told the investigator she felt uncomfortable during the treatments, but, he wasn't trying to make me feel that way, and he brought her and other girls gifts. Next day, she called back and asked to speak to the investigator again. She thought back on her experiences, now realized, yeah, it was sexual abuse. She was told the investigation was ongoing, received a text telling her to stop talking about her experiences publicly to avoid jeopardizing the investigation. Gabby Douglas came forward November 21st, 2017, said she was also abused by Nassar. She also released an Instagram post addressing some comments she had made the previous week that were called out as victim shaming. Allie Raisman had tweeted that what a woman wears does not give men the right to abuse her, and Gabby had commented, "However, it is our responsibility as women to dress modestly and be classy. Dressing in a provocative sexual way entices the wrong crowd." She then deleted that tweet, also issued an apology, made a second apology post on Instagram, part of which read, "I didn't view my comments as victim shaming because I know that no matter what you wear, it never gives anyone the right to harass or abuse you. It would be like saying that because of the leotards we wore, it was our fault that we were abused by Larry Nassar. I didn't publicly share my experiences as well as many other things because for years we were conditioned to stay silent. And honestly, some things were extremely painful." November 22nd, 2017. Nassar pleads guilty now to 7 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct at Ingham County, Michigan, as part of a plea agreement with the Michigan Attorney General's office. Prosecutors agreed to drop 8 charges, not to charge for other sexual assaults in Ingham County, and not to charge on child porn evidence unrelated to the existing federal charges. Man, fucking more child porn. Nassar said at the hearing, I think this is important, what I've done today to help move the community. This is fucking ridiculous. I'm sorry. I just forgot for a second the way he phrased all this. Yeah, Nassar said at this hearing where he's just found guilty, I think this is important. What I've done today to help move the community forward and away from the hurting, let the healing start. A couple things I could do to stop the hurting is this, and I think that's important. For all those involved, I'm so horribly sorry. This was like a match that turned into a forest fire out of control. I have no animosity towards anyone. I just want healing. We need to move forward. God, these fuckers like this. I love how he's acting noble in the situation. That felt like he was just trying to split his consciousness. And now the guy writing that, New Larry, is a completely different entity than Old Larry. Old Larry's a fucking creepy ass pedophile. But New Larry, oh man, no one's been hurt by Old Larry more than New Larry. Right? He's not a monster. He's a heroic part of the solution. Just, hey, thanks for gathering here today, everybody. I just want you to know how hurt I am that Old Larry, not me, definitely not me, did so many terrible things. Shame on Old Larry. And shame on all the coaches who refused to report Old Larry for his heinous crime. Makes me sick. If someone would have told me, New Larry, what Old Larry was doing, hot dog, I would have gone straight to the police. It is beyond unfortunate that Old Larry doesn't have the decency to stand here today and apologize for his crimes and man up. I'll try and do it for him. I'll make a sacrifice, even though, no one's been victimized more by Old Larry than me, New Larry. We might never ever be able to find, Old Larry truly and force him to face justice. But in order just to help these poor girls heal, I'll sacrifice. I'll take the hit. That's the kind of guy I am. I'll go to prison so that these girls can at least know that someone is being punished for Old Larry's crimes that I did not commit. No way, 100% for sure. Let's just heal, everybody. I'm all about healing. Oh, last thing. While I don't have a medical license at the moment, I am more than happy to volunteer and provide vaginal and or rectal adjustments for any and everyone under the age of 18 who would like one free of charge. Just to show the kids that not all doctors are trying to molest them. Just more healing, of course. I'm all about the healing. November 29th, 2017, Nassar pled guilty to 3 counts of first-degree sexual conduct in Eaton County now, just to help the healing. This agreement with the Michigan Attorney General's office had a similar sentencing arrangement to the Ingham County agreement. Again, prosecutors agreed to drop 4 additional charges and to not add additional charges for sexual assault and child porn. December 4th, 2017, Michigan Attorney General Bill Schuette asks MSU President Lou Anna Simon, can people stop publicly identifying themselves with middle names? Let's just fucking knock it off. 2 names is max. You only get to have 2 names out there in the world, right? You're Lou Simon. Lou Anna Simon, shut the fuck up. To release the findings of the internal review conducted by former U.S. Attorney Patrick Fitzgerald into the actions of Larry Nassar while employed by the university. Fitzgerald's review cleared university officials of wrongdoing, but the details were not made public. More on that later. December 7th, 2017, Larry Nassar sentenced to 60 years in federal prison for child porn. Nassar told the judge that he had battled an addiction, which he compared to alcoholism or drug addiction. Oh, yeah. Fuck. Somebody just handed him a picture of a fucking kid getting diddled, and it was just all downhill from there. He said he was ashamed, which kept him from asking for help because he's the victim. No one, again, has been victimized more by Larry Nassar than Larry Nassar. The shame, Your Honor, the shame that Old Larry placed upon my shoulders is about to break me. New Larry. Oh, it's a heavy burden to bear. If I ever come across Old Larry, oh boy, I'll gladly stay in prison for the chance to kill him. That's how mad I am, Your Honor. I will literally kill Old Larry for the hurt he has caused, mostly New Larry. Here's what Larry really said. You go back and you wonder how I got down this path to begin with. I really did try to be a good person. I really did try to help people. I hope one day I can be forgiven, and I'm going to take every day of your sentence to try to better myself. Don't bother. Larry, just fucking hang yourself. Do the world a favor. January 9th, 2018, Maggie Nichols now publicly announces she was sexually abused by Larry Nassar. She released a statement through her lawyer, John Manley. Up until now, I was identified as Athlete A by USA Gymnastics, the U.S. Olympic Committee, and Michigan State University. I want everyone to know that he did not do this to Athlete A. He did it to Maggie Nichols. January 15, 2018. Olympic gymnast Simone Biles also revealed she was abused by Larry Nassar. She posted her statement on Twitter, part of which said, I, too, am one of the many survivors that was sexually abused by Larry Nassar. Please believe me when I say it was a lot harder to first speak those words out loud than it is now to put them on paper. Nassar's Ingham County sentencing hearing began January 16, 2018. Hearing lasted 7 days. 156 people made victim impact statements. So many victims. Following are some portions of those statements, not in any chronological order. Rachel Denhollander said Larry is the most dangerous type of abuser, one who is capable of manipulating his victims through coldly calculated grooming methodologies, presenting the most wholesome and caring external persona as a deliberate means to ensure a steady stream of young children to assault. Fucking well said. Kyle Stevens, a girl who was abused by Nassar when she was just 6 years old, said, "Little girls don't stay little forever. They grow into strong women that return to destroy your world." Fucking hail Nimrod. Holy shit, that's a badass quote. Lucifina just kicked a fucking hole in the wall. Fired her up so much. Marie Anderson told Nassar, "My parents, who had my best interest at heart, will forever have to live with the fact that they continually brought their daughter to a sexual predator and were in the room as he assaulted me." Yeah, think about all the parental victims again, right? The hundreds and hundreds of parents, over 1,000, who will feel their spirits sink in moments, who will second guess themselves probably for the rest of their lives, who will carry the shame of feeling like they should have known, right? They should have protected their daughters. Oh, man. During Nassar's sentencing hearing, several important figures at USAG and MSU left their positions as they should have. January 18th, 2018 now. USAG announces it will sever ties with the Caroli Ranch. January 22nd, USA Gymnastics announces several board members have stepped down, including Chairman Paul Perilla, Vice Chairman Jay Binder, and Treasurer Bitsy Kelly. And yes, Bitsy Kelly is someone's real name. This happened after Scott Blackman, the head of the U.S. Olympic Committee, threatened to decertify USA Gymnastics unless the entire board resigned within 6 days. Okay, good for Scott. Same day, former U.S. women's gymnastics coach and owner of Twistars Gymnastics Club, John Geddert, finally suspended from USAG. Hours later, he sent an email to the families at Twistars announcing his retirement. And a part of his email read, "You know me, and you know Twistars. Everything about our work is about safe, successful gymnastics. That's why I am so incredibly disappointed in USA Gymnastics' recent letter and its false allegations that I have violated safe sport policy. They have imposed a suspension of my membership at a time when we should only be paying attention to the courageous young women who have demonstrated their commitment to truth. The governing body of our sport is doing everything to upstage the victim statements. I know I'm not perfect. Like all of our coaches, I'm deeply committed to protecting the safety and well-being of our students. I know my shortcomings as a coach. I have high expectations and high standards, and I am passionate about coaching our gymnasts to realize their full potential. Sometimes the intensity is challenging, both for our gymnasts and their coaches. Most of you have noticed that I have been taking a back seat this year. That has been part of my exit strategy to retire at the age of 60. Well, 60 is here. The process began last fall, and since that time I've been reducing my coaching roles and turning over responsibility to our very capable staff. Nobody can argue with the results thus far. Justice is about to come for that slime ball as well. He is not going to enjoy that retirement for very long at all. It's going to be great. January 23rd, 2018, the NCAA announces that it had sent a letter of inquiry to MSU, formally opening an investigation into how the university handled the Larry Nassar case. Next day, Judge Rosemarie Aquilina sentenced Larry Nassar again, this time to a minimum of 40 years, maximum of 175 years in prison. Oh, fuck yeah. She read parts of a letter Nassar sent her after he pled guilty, a letter that made her realize she needed to hand him a significant sentence because he's a douchebag who won't take responsibility for what he's done. Old Larry was a bad guy, the letter read. He was a bad doctor. If I knew Larry had been around to stop him, you know I would. Okay, I'll stop with that one-note joke now. But this is ridiculous what he actually wrote. He wrote, after all this is how he still thinks of himself. He wrote, I was a good doctor because my treatments worked. And those patients that are now speaking out were the same ones who praised and came back over and over and referred family and friends to see me. The media convinced them that everything I did was wrong and bad. They feel I broke their trust. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. I'm surprised he didn't write fingered there. Hell hath no fury like a woman fingered. It is just a complete nightmare. Stories are being fabricated to sensationalize this. I was just so manipulated by the Attorney General and now Judge Aquilina. And all I wanted was to minimize stress to everyone. That's his real letter. His narcissism, his self-delusion knows no bounds. Well, the judge told him, this letter tells me you have not yet owned what you did. You still think somehow you are right, you're a doctor, that you're entitled to, so you don't have to listen, that you did treatment. I wouldn't send you to my dog, sir. I love it when judges sneak in little zingers like that. Judge Aquilina is full of them. She might be my favorite judge. Now Nassar says in court, I have some more about her coming up. Now Nassar says in court, your words have had a significant emotional effect on myself and shaken me to my core. I recognize that what I am feeling pales in comparison to the pain, trauma, and emotional destruction I've caused. No words can describe the depth of how sorry I am for what occurred. I will carry your words with me for the rest of my days. Aquilina then told Nassar, I'm a judge who believes in life and rehabilitation when rehabilitation is possible. I don't find that's possible with you. I just signed your death warrant. Hail, Honorable Judge Aquilina. That same day, MSU President Lou Anna Simon resigned amid heavy public pressure to do so. MSU Athletic Director Mark Hollis announces his resignation 2 days later, January 26, 2018. The same day, USAG confirms that all remaining board members will resign after receiving the letter from USOC Chief Executive Scott Blackman threatening to decertify the organization if they don't resign by the next week. Also promised that the USOC, the Olympic Committee, would begin an independent investigation of both itself and USAG. January 27, 2018, Michigan Attorney General Bill Schuette said his office was leading a review of the university. As mentioned, MSU ordered an internal review led by Patrick Fitzgerald, former U.S. Attorney in Chicago. In a December 2017 letter to the Michigan Attorney General, Fitzgerald wrote that no one at MSU knew what Nassar had done until the victims went to the media. He wrote, while many in the community today wish that they had identified Nassar as a predator, we believe the evidence in this case will show that no one else at MSU knew that Nassar engaged in criminal behavior. However, the Detroit News reported that at least 14 MSU representatives did fucking know about allegations against Nassar, and that former president Lou Simon knew about the 2014 Title IX investigation against an unnamed sports medicine doctor. Lawyers for more than 100 victims now criticized MSU for failing to conduct an independent investigation and for settling for a review by a legal team who was also trying to protect the school from liability. Their contract stated they were supposed to defend the university in lawsuits. So huge conflict of interest. January 30th, 2018, Texas Governor Greg Abbott announces that the Texas Rangers will investigate allegations of sexual abuse at Crowley Ranch. And that is the law enforcement agency, not the baseball team. If anybody's a huge baseball fan, they're just like, fucking what? Fucking send a bunch of baseball players in there. Larry Nassar's Eaton County sentencing hearing then starts the next day, January 31st, 2018. 65 victims scheduled to speak at this hearing. An anonymous victim statement was read in court. The victim wrote that her mom warned John Geddert about Larry Nassar way back in 1998. Nassar assaulted her when she was 16. She came in for an appointment at the MSU Sports Medicine Clinic, noticed the receptionist did not let her sign in. So did the receptionist also know what's going on? She wrote that Larry sat next to her on the exam table, told her he was going to perform a new procedure, showed her a plastic model of a pelvis, said the procedure would be, in that area. He did not get permission from her parents to do this. Nassar massaged her glute and hamstring muscles, then inserted his fingers both into her vagina and anus. The victim wrote, I remember shaking and knowing that at that very moment I was being assaulted. She told her mom what happened. Her mom told Geddert that Larry did an inappropriate procedure on her daughter, didn't want to see him again. The victim asked, why would John continue to refer his athletes to Larry, knowing full well of his treatments? She said that after the Indy Star release in 2016, she spoke with Geddert, and he told her it was a medical treatment, and she needed to do her research, right? A misunderstanding. Oh, Geddert, I can't fucking wait for you to get justice in this timeline. February 5th, 2018, Nassar was sentenced yet again, now 40 to 125 years in Eaton County. So many sentencings. Both of his Michigan sentences are now to be served after his federal sentence, which will ensure he will never get out of prison alive. Now let's focus on some fallout from the Nassar investigation. February 9, 2018, MSU announces its intention to fire former Dean of College of Osteopathic Medicine, Dr. William Strample, and announced the suspension of Radiology Chairman Suresh Mukherjee. Mukherjee was interviewed as part of the investigation into the rules Nassar was supposed to follow after the 2014 Title IX investigation. February 10th, Nassar's transferred to the U.S. Penitentiary in Tucson, Arizona, nation's only high-security federal facility that has a sex offender management program. According to Ralph Miller, retired Bureau of Prisons employee, Nassar was to be surrounded by 70 to 80% of inmates who were sex offenders there. Pretty much the only environment he would be safe in besides solitary. February of 2018, Jane Doe files a lawsuit against Bella and Marta Caroli. Suit alleges the Carolis hit and scratched kids and encouraged parents to hit them. They also allowed Nassar to have unfettered and secluded access to minor children. The Carolis had announced their closure of their camp shortly after Nassar was first sentenced. Former gymnast Maddie Larson, who had also filed a lawsuit, told CNN, the complete detachment from the outside world. on top of careless and neglectful adults, made the ranch the perfect environment for abusers and molesters to thrive. Maddie revealed that the abuse was so bad she once gave herself a head injury, just so she wouldn't have to go to the ranch. Her lawsuit alleged that the Carolis turned a blind eye to the perpetrator Nassar's sexual abuse of children at the ranch. Bella and Marta gave depositions in May of 2017 as part of the Larson lawsuit. Marta claimed she didn't know about the sexual abuse. Again, right, like she said before, until Steve Penny called her in 2015. Marta said Nassar did not come to the ranch very often. When asked if she knew whether he was licensed to practice in Texas, she said she didn't know, had no part in selecting him as a team doctor, assumed he had an appropriate license. Also was not under her supervision at the ranch, he reported to a USAG official. However, various gymnasts have contradicted this. Olympic gymnast Jordan Weber said Marta controlled everything at the ranch. Weber and another gymnast said they often saw Larry speaking to Marta and giving her reports on their conditions. When asked if she knew what type of therapy Nassar gave to gymnasts, Marta said she never questioned it, and she saw him doing manipulations with arms and things like that. There were no written rules about this, but it was understood adults were not allowed in gymnast cabins, yet Nassar did after-hours treatments in the social hour room or in the end room at the far end of the cabins, which had massage tables. In her deposition, Bella Caroli said that USAG policies were enforced by Representative Kathy Kelly, and then after he retired in 2001, he didn't interfere with athletes and coaches. March 5th, 2018, Jacob Moore comes forward as the only male gymnast to accuse Nassar of abuse. He saw Nassar in April of 2016 for some shoulder problems, and shit got fucking weird, as it always does with Nassar. He said his shoulder treatment took place in Nassar's basement, where Nassar pulled down his pants, as you do with shoulder injuries, and administered acupuncture in his genital area, as you do when you have a sore shoulder. Actually, my shoulder's been hurting. I should stick some pins in my balls. And be like, oh, fuck, okay. While he did this, he also talked to a female gymnast who was also in the room and could see everything, asked her if she'd ever seen a man's dick or not. He said penis, but, this treatment was uncomfortable, did not help his shoulder. Yeah. And then Moore later had to get surgery. Moore, a freshman gymnast at MSU, joined the civil federal lawsuit against Nassar. He decided to come forward because his sister and other women testified at the sentencing hearing. So he's one of several family members to be abused. Jacob said, I was inspired by by a family member. He was there was another, God damn it. So much going on in this suck. He was one of two siblings. He said, I was inspired by my sister and everyone else in this community to come out and help bring change to what allowed this to happen. I don't want other victims to be scared to come out because of stigma that guys can't be sexually abused or taken advantage of. So good for Jacob. March 26, 2018, William Strample, former dean of MSU's College of Osteopathic Medicine, charged with fourth-degree criminal sexual misconduct. I just want to add the miss. It's just conduct, but misconduct sounds better. Felony misconduct in office and 2 counts of willful neglect of duty. He was accused of using his position to sexually harass female students frequently. June 12th, Strample found guilty of 2 counts of willful neglect of duty and 1 count of felony misconduct in office. He's acquitted of second-degree criminal sexual misconduct, and he receives 2 concurrent 1-year sentences. So many dirty birds involved in all this. April 20th, 2018, the Carolis sued the U.S. Olympic Committee and sued USAG for canceling the purchase of the ranch. Suit alleges that during the negotiation of the July 2016 purchase agreement, USAG did not inform them about the sexual misconduct on the property, even though they already knew about it because of the 2015 report. After Nassar was arrested in December of 2016, they received notice that USAG was terminating the purchase and sale agreement. In an interview with Dateline that aired April 22nd, 2018, Marta said, I feel extremely bad. I don't feel responsible, but I feel extremely hurt that this thing happened, and it happened everywhere. It happened here also. She said she was aware that people questioned how they didn't know anything was happening on their property, adding, but if you couldn't suspect anything, I heard during the testimonies that some of the parents were in the therapy room with their own child, and Larry Nassar was performing this, and the parent couldn't see. How could I see? And you know what? That's a fucking fair point. It's not her fault. This guy was very good at being very bad. He was so fucking devious, right? He tricked hundreds, if not thousands of people. Yeah, thousands of people. Bella and Marta again denied wrongdoing or knowledge of the abuse. May 16, 2018, MSU agrees to a massive $500 million settlement with 332 women and girls sexually abused by Larry Nassar in Michigan. God, $500 million. A portion of the settlement will be held back for anticipated future lawsuits related to Nassar. July 12, 2018, Sarah Hirschland is announced as the new CEO of the U.S. Olympic Committee. She had previously served as Chief Commercial Officer for the U.S. Golf Association. So now they've got a fresh start. August 22nd, 2018, Nassar's appeal of his federal sentence denied by the U.S. Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. August 27th, Nassar's attorneys lost his appeal to have Judge Rosemarie Aquilina removed from hearing his appeal for a new sentence. Judge Aquilina said, "This is not Burger King. He will not have it his way." Again, I fucking love her. Here are some other quotes of hers from Nassar's trial and appeal attempts. Near the end of the first day of Nassar's sentencing hearing regarding cruel and unusual punishment, she said, "Our Constitution does not allow for cruel and unusual punishment. If it did, I have to say, I might allow what he did to all these beautiful souls, these young women in their childhood. I would allow some or many people to do to him what he did to others." I like it. Regarding a letter from Nassar questioning if he could mentally handle multiple days of victim impact statements, she said, "You may find it harsh that you are here listening, but nothing is as harsh as what your victims endured for thousands of hours at your hands collectively. You spent thousands of hours perpetrating criminal sexual conduct on minors. Spending 4 or 5 days listening to them is significantly minor considering the hours of pleasure you had at their expense and ruining their lives. None of this should come as a surprise to you." Before gymnast Allie Raisman gave a victim statement, she said, "I'm an adult and I'm listening, and I'm sorry it took this long. You were never the problem, but you are so much the solution." To gymnast Olivia Cowan, who gave a victim statement, she said, "Your dreams are still out there. His are squashed." And finally, to soccer player Amanda Cormier, who said she lost her passion for songwriting due to Nassar's abuse, the judge said, "It seems to me after this you can finish writing. You found your voice. It's a strong, effective, brave voice, and you have a child coming. Maybe what you need to do is start and finish a lullaby." I fucking love Rosemarie Aquilina. Why can't she run for president? Aquilina, 2024, let's fucking go. Also in August of 2018, some good news. Nassar transferred to the Coleman II U.S. Penitentiary and Penitentiary. I know I say that word wrong all the time. Penitentiary. In Central Florida because he was attacked by another inmate in May, shortly after he was released into the general population. Oh, fuck yeah. Nassar's attorneys partially blamed Judge Rosemarie Aquilina, arguing that during the sentencing hearing, she made efforts to demonize Dr. Nassar in front of the entire world. Openly lamented that she could not impose cruel and unusual punishment upon the defendant, and indicated her expectation that he would be harmed in prison. I didn't find that quote. Yeah, well, they can all fuck off. He should be demonized. He's a demon. November 5th, 2018, the U.S. Olympic Committee initiated steps to remove USAG as the sport's governing body at the Olympic level. December 5th, 2018, USAG filed a Chapter 11 bankruptcy petition. At the time, the organization was facing 100 lawsuits. A report commissioned by the U.S. Olympic Committee, February 2018, was released December 10th, 2018, and the report determined that Nassar did not operate in a vacuum and acted within an ecosystem that facilitated his criminal acts. Officials with the U.S. Olympic Committee waited over a year before addressing the abuse allegations, and that inaction allowed Nassar to continue to have access to young athletes and girls for another 14 months. Nassar had access to athletes at MSU, Twistars, and Holt High School. The report noted that USAG was first presented with credible sexual abuse allegations against Nassar in mid-June 2015. USAG launched a 5-week internal investigation and contacted the FBI in July. During the 5 weeks, USAG did not make the gymnastics community aware of the complaints. The report concluded that Nassar committed thousands of assaults between the early 90s and 2016. He carefully constructed a comprehensive system of abuse, where he maintained his reputation as a skilled and caring doctor and earned the trust of victims, parents, and other adults. Individuals and organizations ignored red flags, failed to recognize textbook grooming behaviors, or in some egregious instances, dismissed clear calls for help from girls and young women who were being abused by Nassar. April 24th, 2019, Twistars Gymnastics Club reaches a $2.125 million settlement with 200 victims who said they were assaulted at that gym. July 30th, 2019, NBC News obtains a Senate report stating that the organization meant to protect gymnasts from sexual abuse, such as the U.S. Olympic Committee and the FBI, fundamentally failed to do so. The Senate Commerce Subcommittee on Manufacturing, Trade, and Consumer Protection conducted a 1.5-year-long investigation and proposed legislation to improve oversight and prevent future abuse. The report found that MSU, USAG, and USOC, and the FBI all had opportunities to stop Nassar but failed to do so. Olympic organizations knowingly concealed abuse by Nassar, leading to the abuse of dozens of additional amateur athletes between the summer of 2015 and September of 2016. Senator Richard Blumenthal, the ranking member of the Senate subcommittee overseeing the Olympics, told NBC, Whether it was a criminal cover-up remains to be proven, but it was a cover-up in spirit. And yes, that was a Richard, and I'm not going to obsess over it. January 21st, 2020, the Michigan State Police and members of the Attorney General's office were seen taking boxes out of the Twistars Gymnastics Club, and the Grand Ledge Police were seen at John Geddert's home early that day. Oh, about to get it, fucking Geddert. June 24th, 2020, the Athlete A documentary, covering the Larry Nassar scandal debuts on Netflix, and now millions hear about this story for the first time. July 14th, 2021, the Inspector General of the Justice Department released a report criticizing how the FBI handled the Nassar case. The report stated that 70 or more athletes were abused between July 2015, August 2016, when Rachel Denhollander made her police report. Attorney John Manley, representing the victims, said the number was closer to 120. The Inspector General found that senior FBI officials at the Indianapolis field office failed to respond to the allegations with the utmost seriousness and urgency they deserved and required. The FBI made numerous and fundamental errors and failed to notify state or local authorities to take steps to address the threat posed by Nassar. September 15th, 2021, gymnasts Simone Biles, Aly Raisman, Maggie Nichols, Michaela Maroney testify at a Senate committee hearing. FBI Director Christopher A. Wray acknowledged that the FBI mishandled the case and apologized directly to the victims. This is the first time anyone with the FBI submitted to public questioning. Wray could not offer an explanation for why the case was mishandled. He also revealed that he had fired the agent who interviewed Michaela, Michael Langman. Langman was an unnamed agent in the Inspector General's report. The report said Langman should have known the abuse was properly widespread, and he did not investigate the case with any urgency. Langman did not properly document the interview with Michaela or open an investigation. He filed an interview report 17 months later, which did not name her. Also included some statements she didn't make. The fuck was going on with that guy? Lazy, incompetent, both. Also did not alert local or state authorities about Nassar, which violates FBI policy. Langman later said he filed an initial report asking for the case to be transferred to the office in Lansing, but the paperwork was not found in the database. February 25th, 2021, there's justice for Twistars Gymnastics Club founder and coach and Nassar's pedo buddy, fucking John Geddert. John did the world a huge favor on February 25th, 2021, and he actually murdered a monster himself. He died of suicide at the age of 63. He had been charged with human trafficking, forced labor, and the sexual assault of a teenage girl. Geddert's body was found at a roadside rest area in Clinton County, Michigan, hopefully near some trash cans. He did not report for his arraignment earlier that day. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel filed the charges. The charges allege that Geddert subjected his athletes to forced labor or services under extreme conditions that contributed to suffering injuries and harm. Nessel used a new legal strategy in charging Geddert with human trafficking. Human trafficking referred to any kind of coerced labor, not just sexual exploitation. She hoped this would deter other coaches from abusing athletes in a similar way. December 13th, 2021, a federal bankruptcy court in Indianapolis approves a $380 million settlement between USA Gymnastics, the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, and over 500 victims. Over 90% of the victims voted in favor of a tentative settlement reached in September that called for $425 million to be paid out. And then a modified settlement was approved by the court. A provision of the settlement included a dedicated seat for the victims on the Safe Sport Committee, Athlete Health and Wellness Council, and Board of Directors, and a look at the culture and practices within USAG. April 20th, 2022, Attorney Jamie White files a tort claim against the FBI. He represents 13 female athletes seeking $10 million each from the FBI. The 13 victims were abused at the Twistars Gymnastics Club after the FBI was made aware of the allegations. June 8th, 2022, a group representing over 90 women, including Simone Biles, Michaela Maroney, Aly Raisman, filed several federal tort claims against the FBI, seeking over $1 billion in damages for the mishandling of the investigation. June 17th, 2022, Michigan Supreme Court rejects Nassar's appeal. July 9th, 2023, Larry Nassar stabbed 6 times. Stabbed 6 times in the back and chest with a shiv by another inmate at the U.S. Penitentiary Coleman in Florida. Nassar was in stable condition by the next day. That dumb motherfucker was watching Wimbledon, allegedly, with some other inmates when he said in a sexual way, I wish there were girls playing. And that comment led a fellow inmate to go to Nassar's cell later that day, stab him at least 6 times with a manufactured weapon. I picture him as the guy is coming for him yelling, no, it's not me you're after. You want old Larry. No. Old Larry wants to fuck those tennis girls, not me. New Larry is trying to make sure they have proper hip and hamstring mobility. Just a few months ago now, April 23rd, 2024, the Department of Justice announced a $139 million settlement with Larry Nassar's victims over FBI misconduct. This is a settlement for that $1 billion suit I mentioned, all those tort claims. 139 total victims ended up joining this suit, so they'll now each get $1 million. Hail Nimrod, hail Lucifina. And finally, just a few days ago, before I recorded this, June 8th, rumors have surfaced that following getting stabbed in prison, last year, now 60-year-old Larry Nassar has been paying Mexican gang members for protection in prison with cash and, oh, I love this, sexual favors. Fucking finally, someone is giving Larry some treatment of his own. I hope, just like Larry didn't use lube with his victims, they're not using lube with him.
Good job, soldier. You made it back. Barely.
God, we usually don't get such a satisfying conclusion like that. How great. Larry fucking Nassar is getting fucked in prison. That sneaky motherfucker. For over 25 years, he openly molested girl after girl after girl, all under the guise of treatment, right? Just doing some pelvic floor physical therapy, just trying to loosen up that tight, pesky, sacrotuberous butthole ligament. Larry worked with USA Gymnastics, Michigan State University, volunteered at a prominent Michigan gymnastics club for decades. Young gymnasts, MSU students, parents made reports about his misconduct over the years, but their suspicions largely disregarded or ignored because he was so fucking good at being a piece of shit. When they were investigated, Larry was able to dupe investigators with his medical knowledge. Thankfully, victims didn't give up. More kept making reports. Then finally, two major events led to Larry Nassar's downfall. A report made to the FBI in July of 2015 by USA Gymnastics, and a police report made at MSU by a former gymnast who was abused in 2000. Initially, the FBI will fail in their response to this report. The USAG waited 5 weeks to make the initial report, ignoring requirements to report suspected sexual abuse to authorities immediately. They both failed. After receiving the report, agents waited months to interview the Olympic-level gymnasts who accused Nassar of sexual abuse. Gymnasts and their families were told to keep quiet. The authorities did not share the allegations with MSU or other organizations, which allowed Larry to keep abusing people, over 100 more victims. But where the FBI failed, some dedicated investigative journalists at the Indianapolis Star were able to expose Nassar's crimes to the whole country. The Indy Star published a story sharing claims from two women who were assaulted by Nassar, one of whom was a former Olympic gymnast. The first victim to come forward publicly, Rachel Denhollander, filed a police report against Nassar, and her actions in the story from Indy Star helped really ramp up the federal investigation. In response to the articles, hundreds of women would come forward to report they were sexually abused by Nassar. To date, over 500 have accused him of abuse. Nassar assaulted women, girls, at least one young man at different locations. MSU, Twistars Gymnastics Club, where he volunteered for his friend and former Olympic head coach, John Geddert. His home, down in the basement, the Caroli Olympic training camp, the ranch in Texas. He targeted underage girls as young as 6 years old, at least as young as 6, almost always gymnasts. Nassar told female gymnasts that he could help treat injuries with a procedure called a intravaginal adjustment. And he would then grope and massage underage patients' breasts and genitals. He inserted his ungloved, unlubed fingers and thumbs into their vaginas and rectums. He did this without parental permission or informed consent, and he did it for things like fucking wrist injuries. Many of the gymnasts thought this was a legitimate medical practice, so they often did not question his behavior. Nassar occasionally assaulted patients with their parents or other people nearby. Most girls felt lucky they were being treated by an esteemed Olympic doctor, and those who wanted to speak out were questioned, told they were just confused about how the treatment was supposed to work, told they might cause harm to Nassar's reputation and career if they disparaged him, and it seemed like no one believed the victims who came forward before 2015. Others were scared to say anything because it would put their athletic career at risk. Nassar had numerous supporters in the gymnastics community, even after he was arrested and charged. But that did all change when he was charged with possession of child pornography. Hard to fucking spin that away. Now his actions were viewed in an entirely new, not therapeutic, definitely sexually deviant lens. In 2017, Nassar pled guilty to federal child pornography charges and 10 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct in 2 Michigan counties. At his sentencing hearings in January of 2018, over 200 women and girls gave victim impact statements in court. In addition to a 60-year federal sentence, Nassar received a 40 to 175-year sentence and a 40 to 125-year sentence. He will for sure die in prison. And maybe soon, if he gets stabbed again. Better make sure he's sucking a mean dick. Getting that fucking loophole examined to keep that protection racket going he needs. The allegations against Nassar exposed problems within USAG, the U.S. Olympic Committee, and MSU. Several individuals associated with Nassar, like former MSU president and gymnastics coach and the former president of USAG, faced federal charges for their actions during the criminal investigation. There were also reports that Nassar's buddy John Geddard ignored reports of abuse, and the Karolis were accused of allegedly overlooking sexual abuse. And it became clear that the USAG did not properly expose over 50 other alleged pedophiles, at least several of whom have been convicted of serious crimes. Both the Senate and Justice Department's Inspector General found the FBI made several errors during the investigation that allowed Nassar to continue abusing gymnasts for months and months and months. Hundreds of victims have filed lawsuits against Nassar, MSU, USAG, the FBI, Twistars Gymnastics Club. The Larry Nassar case didn't just reveal the heinous actions of one man, it exposed the widespread abuse and problems in gymnastics in general in the U.S. and has led to important conversations about how to make the sport safer and promote a positive environment for young athletes. A lot of changes have been implemented, right? Today, because of this scandal, the world of female gymnastics is finally much safer. So let's recap, learn something new as well in today's takeaways.
Timesuck Top 5 Takeaways.
Number one, over 500 people, that is so many fucking people, ended up accusing Larry Nassar of sexual abuse. That's more than the fucking town I grew up in. So many victims. Nassar abuse, it's weird for me now, my brain, now they said that, I'm just picturing fucking Larry Nassar just molesting literally every single person in the town I grew up in. Nassar abused young women, girls, at least one young man for decades. Not the young man for decades, but overall. He committed sexual abuse at Michigan State University, his home, Twistars, Gymnastics Club, the Crowley Ranch in Texas, and at gymnastics events literally all over the world, even at the Olympics. He often had unsupervised access to underage girls, but in many cases, a victim's parent or other supervisor would be in the room with them. Nassar had established so much trust with the adults in the gymnastics industry that they did not believe the parents or the girls who did come forward to report that he touched them inappropriately. Many girls thought that what happened to them was a legitimate medical procedure. Didn't realize until years later they were being sexually abused. These are just some of the factors that allowed the abuse to continue for so long. Number two, Rachel Denhollander was the first victim to publicly identify herself. In 2016, she read an article from the Indy Star about sexual abuse by gymnastics coaches, decided it was time to share her story. She was sexually abused by Nassar in 2000. She and Olympic gymnast Jamie Dancer spoke with the Indy Star for a September 2016 article that exposed Nassar's crimes to the whole country. Their bravery helped hundreds of other women come forward to make additional reports against Nassar. Number three. Quick little number two, backing up. Hail Nimrod, hail Josephina. That's fucking incredible how they just blew it open. Number three, the FBI investigation started because of a report from athlete A, elite gymnast Maggie Nichols. In June 2015, Maggie's coach overheard her telling another gymnast that Larry touched her inappropriately at the ranch. Maggie's parents wanted to make a report immediately, but former USAG president Steve Penny told him, we'll take care of it. And then USAG waited 5 weeks, during which they hired an investigator to speak to several girls. The investigator recommended they contact law enforcement, so then they reported allegations to the FBI in July of 2015. Due to some jurisdictional confusion and also some straight-up incompetence, the FBI waited for fucking months to speak to victims. All the while, they were told the investigation was being taken care of and just to keep quiet. Because the investigation was kept secret for so long, no one warned so many others about Larry Nassar. And he continued to abuse so many girls until he was fired in September of 2016 from MSU. Number four, Larry Nassar almost got away with possessing a crazy amount of child porn. His trash pickup was late on the day investigators searched his house. Inside the trash can, they found hard drives that contained over 37,000 images of child sexual abuse. If the trash pickup had arrived on time, the hard drives would have gone to the landfill and most likely would have never been found. And number five, new info, a viral moment in court. February 2nd, 2018, a father named Randall Margraves rushed at Larry Nassar during his sentencing hearing in Eaton County. Almost managed to fucking get a hold of him too. I watched the video twice. Hearing the details about the abuse for the first time and seeing Nassar shaking his head like he was the fucking victim, fucking old Larry, made Randy lose his shit in an attempt to attack Nassar. The attack went viral because the hearing was live streamed. 3 of his daughters spoke at this hearing. Yes, Larry sexually abused 3 of this guy's kids. 2 of them had just finished speaking when Margraves addressed the judge saying, I would ask you as a part of the sentencing to grant me 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon. The judge said she couldn't do that. So he then asked, can I have 1 minute? The judge was like, can't have that. 3 deputies and Nassar's attorney then blocked and tackled Margraves. When he rushed at Nassar, Margraves said, give me 1 minute with that bastard. Let me have that son of a bitch. Judge found Margraves in contempt of court, but did not fine or jail him. Awesome. Sheriff's office debated, charged him with something, though. Margraves said at a later press conference that evening that he was embarrassed by his actions, saying, my daughters are the real heroes. and all the victims and survivors of this. Well, then many people supported Margraves online with the hashtag #GiveHimAMinute. Fucking love it. February 12th, it was announced he would face no charges from the sheriff. Lansing resident had set up a GoFundMe page on his behalf to cover fines or legal fees. Over $31,000 was raised in just 2 days. And then Margrave said he didn't want the money and promised to give people a chance to get a refund, and that any funds not reclaimed would be donated to an organization to help survivors of sexual abuse.
Timesuck Top 5 Takeaways.
Larry Nassar and the U.S. Gymnastics scandal has been sucked. Man, so much abuse for so long, and not just dished out by Larry. So many predators lurking around so many female gymnasts. Thank you once again to the Bad Magic Productions team for all the help in making Timesuck. Starting with Queen of Bad Magic, Lindsay Cummins, followed by Logan Keith, recording this episode, designing merch for the store at badmagicproductions.com. A big thank you to Olivia Lee for doing a killer job compiling a lot of initial research from a lot of different sources today. Well done, Olivia. Also, thanks to the All Seen Eyes moderating the Cult of the Curious private Facebook page, the Mod Squad, making sure Discord stays fun, and everyone over on the Timesuck subreddit and Bad Magic subreddit. And now let's head over to this week's Timesucker updates.
Updates? Get your Timesucker updates.
Okay, before we get into the Schneider updates, something far more important. Sweet son, marvelous meat sack, Lance Rechichar has a time-sensitive request. He wrote it with the subject line of, "My dad needs help." Hello, Dan. I want to start off by saying I love the podcast. I listen to every new episode. I am not a space lizard, but hope to be one in the future. I'm writing you because my family needs help. My dad, Donald H. Rechichar, needs a kidney, and as of right now, we are looking for live donors, if at all possible. I was wondering if you might be able to help by sending his name and contact information. I'm not very good with computers, but if you're willing to do this, I can get you anything you'll need, such as the link, information for people to sign up to be a live donor. If not, I completely understand. I will continue to listen to your show either way. I hope to hear from you soon. I can go into more detail about the great man that my father is and all he has done for me and my 3 siblings and his 9 grandchildren. I know you're a busy man, but if on the off chance you get a free moment and you'd like to talk about it, I'll put my number down at the bottom. Appreciate your time and reading the message. Hope all is well with you, Lindsay, Kyler, and Monroe. Also, sorry about the run-on sentences. Horrible sentence structure. Grammar was never my strong suit. No, you did fucking great. I work with my back. There isn't much use for good grammar in my field. Well, you're good. You have good grammar. I'll be copying this and sending it to a few more emails. I have to find a few more emails. I just want to make sure I've gotten it to you somehow. So I apologize in advance for the duplicate emails. It's just very important to me that you see this, and I just hope you can help. And I was kind of the black sheep of the family for years. I don't know how else to help my dad. My brother and his sisters are making flyers and doing sponsored lunges. I've never had the same ability as them. But I do listen to you, so this is me shooting my shot. Hope to hear from you soon. Loyal fan, Lance Rechichar. Well, Lance, I'm so sorry to hear about your dad's medical situation. I did not have much time, as I usually don't, to compile the updates outside of like episode, getting that stuff together. But here's how I can help. I put your email in today's episode description, and it is Lance Albert Rechichar. It's you have a tricky last name. I think I'm saying it right just because there was an old football player, Bert Rechichar, who played like the fucking 40s or something, who had that name. But it's Lance Albert Rechichar, RECHICHR at gmail.com. But again, it'll be in the episode description for everybody listening. If any meat sacks listening happen to have a kidney you consider parting with to save a stranger's life, obviously email Lance. But also, if you just have insight to share with Lance regarding how he could find a donor, please email him. I am not an expert by fucking any means. I don't know shit about that area. Not my area of expertise at all. So if anybody has information that can help him, some tips he might not find easily online, please reach out to him. And good on you for reaching out, Lance. You're doing awesome. You should be proud of yourself for helping. Your dad's siblings should be proud of you as well. Hail Nimrod. All is well with the fam. Thanks for asking, and best of luck. And now one more non-Schneider message, because I do want to share another stick-beating story. Stick-wielding sack Bobbert Harden wrote in with the subject line of "Sticks and stones will break my bones." Good afternoon, Dan and the Timesuck team. My name is Bobbert. Bobbert B. Blackerson, or at least that's what people call me, because I made it my name on Facebook years ago. Fucking love it. Now, before getting into my story of beating someone with a stick, I wanted to say your comedy and your podcast mean a lot to me. I've always enjoyed your comedy to the point that at one time I tasered my friend while yelling "Electrico" when he asked why I was dressed as a wizard. That's awesome. Even though I've only started the podcast about a year and a half ago, it has become a reminder there are plenty of awesome, inquisitive meat sacks out there. The Timesuck gods have even appeared in my D&D campaigns. With that said, on to the story. So my little brother Onyx, yes, that's his real name, grew up in combat sports. Me doing MMA, him in boxing and wrestling. So us beating each other up was a constant. He is 1 year younger, so they were fair fights. We didn't live together, so when I graduated high school before him, I would often wait at his house for him to get home. I love just waiting to fight him. Before Christmas break was one such time. I was waiting when I had a brilliant idea about how I could just ambush him in the woods during his walk home. For added effect, I unscrewed a broom handle to use as a weapon. Unable to find a good hiding spot in the woods, I chose to climb a tree. Now I was in a tree with the broom handle waiting for him. I love this. I was so confident in my plan, I called him on his cell phone, told him I was waiting in a tree for him, which he didn't believe because that's crazy. Eventually, I was able to fall from the tree. I landed one good hit on his shoulder. Before I could continue, he pleaded with me to wait because he has a new sweater. He was wearing a new sweater he just gotten as a gift. I fucking love it. No, come on, let me get the sweater off. Being courteous, I allowed him to take it off as we walked out of the woods. He folded it up, placed it on a car, and then the beating fucking resumed. I got maybe 5 good hits in before he caught the broom. Then we had a tug of war over it while punching and kicking each other until it broke. But he wasn't done. Now he had a stick and he wanted revenge. We turned the stick so the broken end wasn't the part we were swinging, right? Safety first. Then proceeded to beat each other with sticks for about 5 minutes before an adult made us stop because they were afraid we were going to damage his car. I love my little brother. I have many stories of the random violence we visited upon one another. I hope you enjoyed my little story. Oh, I did. And of course, I'm not sorry about the length. I'm sorry for any misspellings or grammatical areas. Dyslexia can be a bitch. And I refuse to proofread. If you read this on the air, just a shout out to all the meat sacks out there that haven't heard today. I love you. Oh, thanks, Bobbert. Yes, I do love me a good stick beating story. And that sounds like a great one. Sounds like you had a lot of fun, right? Sounds like you got some good cracks in. Took some shots as well. Well done, hiding in the tree. That was a nice extra detail. Hearing that story, when I first read it, it legitimately made me want to find a stick and beat Kyler Monroe. But not really. Because like when we fight, they don't show restraint when they fight back and they've gotten big and strong. It's concerning. Like I always have some regard for their well-being when fighting them. They have none for mine. Okay, now Schneider. Okay, we've gotten a lot of emails, as I'm sure you're not surprised, about the episode. And it's just been a couple days. I'm recording this a couple days after it came out, so I'm sure more are coming. I've also seen a lot of comments on Patreon, social media, YouTube. I found it interesting that while a lot of people leaving comments definitely did not like my take on Schneider, not being a monster in the way the documentary portrayed him, most of the emails that have come in have been some kind of version of, I know you're getting a lot of hate. I assume you're getting a lot of hate. I bet you're getting a lot of hate. But I also watched the doc and did not see evidence warranting classifying Schneider as a monster. Here's one of those emails. And then I'll share a very critical message, right, to round it out. And then I'll explain things further. I'm not going to share this person's name. I don't want anybody else to be publicly dragged into the polarizing debate here. They wrote, I must say, when I first started listening to the Dan Schneider episode of Timesuck, I was a bit worried and thought you were going to be in over your head, maybe even get canceled. I must give you props on trying to be level-headed and go against the majority of public opinion. This is a very touchy subject where people feel very strongly and you are for sure going to get blowback. Although I don't agree with everything you said, I think you are mostly correct on Dan Schneider. He was an asshole, not a predator. The sexual jokes and innuendo were, in my opinion, as someone who watched those shows as a kid and teen, they were meant to be sexual, which of course is inappropriate and weird to do as an adult around kids, but not the worst crime in the world. He is an asshole, a weird asshole, but that's it. To lump his actions in with the actions of actual predators does nothing but diminish the credibility of the documentary, which is unfortunate for true victims such as Drake Bell. I doubt you'll read this on the show, but just wanted to share my thoughts and thank you for the show. P.S. I discovered your show due to an ad on last podcast on the left. Advertising works. Well, thank you, a person who did not ask to remain anonymous, but person I chose to leave anonymous. I forgot we ever had ads on that podcast, last podcast on the left. Glad at least one worked. Okay, and now again, before I have a little lengthy thing to say, another point of view. I couldn't find what I thought was an email sent in that said similar things, so I went and found a comment. And they wrote, I can't believe me, dug so deep to defend Schneider so many times. I usually like how he'll try and look at subjects from all sides, but this episode he really dug deep with conjecture to defend some terribly bad behavior by Schneider. All because he, himself, admits to similar bad behavior in writing rooms in the past. Well, not exactly this time. I did not admit to bad behavior that was similar to what he did. The documentary never once said Schneider was a child predator, but Dan thinks the documentary should lose a suit for telling other people's sides. This will really stop anyone from going after a powerful person in the future. 1 out of 5 stars. Okay, a lot to unpack. I'm going to share a bit more about my site. First off, I just want to say I'm amazed by what some people heard or just what they hear when you talk about any polarizing issue. And this has happened to me in the past with other subjects. I'm like, no, I didn't say that. I feel like there's a lot of misinterpretations out there regarding my stance on Dan Schneider in this episode. The only reason I defended this particular attack on Dan Schneider, as opposed to defending Dan just as a human in general, and the reason I'll continue to do so, unless new evidence comes in, is because he was clearly, to me and to many others, framed as being a child predator, not as an asshole, not as a dickhead boss, but as a pedophile who just hasn't been arrested quite yet. And that is why he's suing. He's not suing because people said bad things about him being a boss. He admitted he was a bad boss in some video I watched on YouTube. Like, he doesn't deny that. He doesn't deny he was a dickhead to those 2 female riders. He's suing because they took it so much further than that. It wasn't about inappropriate commentary in the workplace. It was about clearly framing him as a fucking pedophile who just hasn't been caught. Producers never called him that explicitly. No one who worked with him ever called him that, at least not on camera in the docuseries. But it was for sure insinuated over and over and over and over. 5 episodes. And to me, that is not okay when you don't have hard evidence of him being a child predator. I was not and am not trying to say, again, he was a good dude or is a good boss. I don't know. I don't know much about him. I just will never think it's okay to try and portray anyone, as a pedophile, unless you have evidence. It's a very heavy, lofty, life-altering accusation. You can destroy someone's life with it. So you better not take it lightly. Also, the more times people make a huge fuss about someone being a fucking creep, or like a pedo, I guess, when there's no evidence of that, the less likely people will be in the future to believe victims when they accuse a real predator of being a real predator. One commenter, I can't remember who, told me that you should always believe accusers, and other people said similar things. And that's not true. You should not. You should always hear victims out, alleged victims. You should always assume they might be telling the truth, but you should not blindly believe. That is absurd. If that was true, we should get rid of juries and trials. Just get rid of most of our court system. We should implement a new policy where if you accuse something of anything at all, they just immediately get arrested. Please don't even hear their side of the story. They just find them, they arrest them, they take them straight to prison where they stay for the length of whatever sentence corresponds to the accusation. No lawyers, no chance to defend themselves at all. We don't do that, though, because that's fucking crazy. We don't do that because just like a lot of people are victimized, just because like a lot of people are actually monsters, a lot of people are also liars. False accusations, that's a real phenomenon. And to deny it would be, for me, to be intellectually dishonest, to be disingenuous. There we go, disingenuous. I was also accused by some people of victim blaming when it came to the former child actors. But I would say regarding, again, the narrative of the documentary being that the sexual perpetrator, sexual predator, how can you blame a victim when they have no claims of being victimized, right? Not in the way the docuseries alluded to. I kept waiting for them. When I went into this docuseries, I honestly thought he was for sure guilty. I was like, well, that's why this docuseries exists. Because this guy is some kind of fucking, Jeffrey Epstein. I kept waiting for one of them to say that Dan molested them, that Dan was grooming them, that while they were underage, Dan was blatantly flirting with them. I kept waiting for somebody on camera to say, Dan was peeping on him in the dressing room, or that Dan looked up their skirt, something to that effect, anything, but it never happened in the 5 episodes. So how exactly were those people victims? I mean, the things they said were stuff like they didn't like the sketches they were in. They didn't like some of the outfits they were asked to wear. Is that how low the bar is now when it comes to identifying as a victim? I find that insulting to victims of serious crimes like Larry Nassar's victims. I think this kind of attitude waters down what it means to be victimized. And it does a huge disservice to people who are actually assaulted, and it plays into a sad kind of victim mentality that helps no one in life. Again, me pointing out my stance here does not equate also with me being on Team Schneider, which seemed to be a perception held by many. He was creepy regarding asking adult female employees for shoulder rubs. 100%. Was sexist. Frankly, fucking douchebag when it came to how he treated at least 2 female staff writers. That's not cool. But that behavior, again, does not justify portraying him as a sex offender who just hasn't been caught. To read sexually predatory behavior into what could have been easily have been juvenile sketches. Like cum shots? Children's foot fetish? Really? For sure? We know that? Can't just be slapstick, gross out humor? I don't fucking buy it. Not the way it was presented. Might be, also might not be. My issue in the episode is not with Dan Schneider, it's with the quiet on set producers, how unfairly they framed a documentary narrative without evidence to back it up. And that's why I want him to lose, want them to lose this defamation suit. Also, regarding my defense of production work culture and preventing people from going after people in power, never said Dan Schneider was a good boss. Ever. Or that his negative behavior in the writer's room was okay. If this doc would have been framed differently, if it would have been about bad bosses, okay. All right, it's a different narrative. I'm more likely to be on board. But that's not what it was about at all. It wasn't about being a bad boss. It was about sexual predators working on kids' TV shows. And the focus was mostly on Dan Schneider. What I was trying to do regarding sharing my own behavior on shows was to illustrate how manipulative the producers of the Quiet on Set docuseries were by leaving out important context. It is important when talking about what goes on in a writer's room to understand what the cultural norm is. If the norm was for people to talk and behave like they were at church, and then you had a guy making crude jokes and demeaning other writers, well, that behavior is more outrageous, right? Because it's more atypical. But if crude jokes and sexually charged atmosphere is the norm, which it is and was for sure, then that person's behavior does not seem as alarming because they're acting like most other people are acting. They're acting by definition normal, conforming to a standard. Not saying that's good, but it's important context to understand. In most cases, when trying to ascertain how inappropriate someone is being, you need to know how abnormal their behavior is, right? Normal doesn't always equate to ethical, to correct, but I feel strongly that what was normal was important contextually in the docuseries, framing Schneider as a monster. And I could go on and on, but there's no point. We're not going to see eye to eye on everything, and that is fine. That is life. In conclusion, a lot of people upset with me kept using the word monster. Dan Schneider's a monster. He's a monster. He's a monster. Not for me, he's not. Not based on the evidence. Call me crazy, but I'm going to reserve the term monster for people like fucking Larry Nassar. I'm not going to water it down by also applying it to Dan Schneider. I think it's, again, an insult to the victims of someone like Nassar to act like Schneider is even remotely in the same category, which for sure a lot of people have done online, like fucking millions. And I think it's ridiculous. Nassar deserves every bit of punishment he's gotten for what he's done. Schneider, though, based on what I heard in the docuseries, what I've seen in articles online, does not, at this point, deserve to have his character assassinated for sometimes being a bad boss, for sometimes being a dickhead, for being fucking creepy with the shoulder rubs, for maybe being creepy about kid sketches, but maybe not. And that's all I got. You can keep hating my opinion, but I'm not going to change it just because of public sentiment. Thank you to the overwhelming majority of you who, even when you are pissed at me, even when you think I'm way out fucking base, and I'm going to be, I fuck up just like everybody else. I'm going to be wrong about plenty of shit. You're still respectful when voicing a dissenting opinion, and that is just refreshing. Even if you're upset with me right now, I still think the majority of you, even when I strongly disagree with you, are some of the best people on the planet, and it's still so fun to do this podcast. So keep thinking for yourselves, you beautiful bastards. Keep trying to do the right thing like you guys always seem to do, right? Trust no one implicitly. Don't just agree with somebody because it's easy to do. And that includes documentary producers. And that includes me. Hail Nimrod. I hope you have a fucking great week.
Thanks, time suckers. I needed that.
We all did.
Thank you for listening to another Bad Magic Productions podcast. Scared to Death, Timesuck each week. Short Sucks, Nightmare Fuel on the Timesuck and Scared to Death podcast feed some weeks. Please do not try to dish out any intravaginal adjustments this week. It's not a real thing. Just keep your fucking dirty fingers to yourself. And keep on sucking.
Bad Magic Productions.
I want to give you another, some more knowledge. Did you know that a colon massage is a real legitimate thing? And that it shouldn't, if carried out correctly, involve sodomy? It takes about 20 minutes and it can aid in relieving constipation. It can help get your poop out, get your peanut butter out. Here's how you perform it. You have your patient lie down flat on the floor, start at the lower right-hand side of the abdomen, at the front of the right hip bone, and you just kind of stroke upward to underneath the right side of the rib cage. Stroke across from right to left, underneath the rib cage, right? You're just going up, and then you're going across here, and then down the lower left side of the abdomen. You're just kind of just pushing out right by the ribs, and then you finish with an inward stroke towards the middle of the lower abdomen. And you just repeat this square-like motion. You just kind of just go around here 5 to 7 times, just massaging the poop out. Next, place the hand on the lower right-hand side of the abdomen, press down with moderate pressure, scoop the hand in an upward C-shaped stroke 3 to 5 times. Repeat the same stroke below the right-hand rib cage, left-hand rib cage, lower left side of the abdomen, lower middle abdomen, 3 to 5 times each position. And that's it. No rectum penetration necessary. You don't need to stick anything into their butthole to help them get their poop out. The more you know, everybody, the more you know.